Long Beach Time Exchange's Dare to Share challenge today, alongside the Long Beach Gives campaign, over which there has been quite a lot of donations in early giving and into starting the day today very strong. So just a quick update on the leaderboard. We're about to hit $1 million as a city, raising funds for well over 100 nonprofits. Very exciting stuff, and you can see the dollars keep rolling in. Long Beach Time Exchange is doing pretty well. We've raised over $1,000, and we're in the category of community and civic engagement if you go on longbeachgives.org. Today we've got pretty much a full day of awesome people sharing really useful skills from throughout our network and beyond. So if you go on the lbtimeexchange.com and click upcoming events, you'll see the schedule there as well. And we're streaming on Facebook and YouTube if everything is going as planned. So we'll be right back in just about 1.5 minutes with our first skill share. We're going to jump right into it, and it's going to be Carin sharing a bit about hemming and also sewing on a button, something I need to do with at least 4 or 5 articles of clothing right now. So bear with us for just a minute as we get that queued up for you and kick off our Dare to Share challenge. All right, without further ado, thanks for tuning in. Thank you to our commenter. The Long Beach Time Exchange has raised about $1,000, and the entire network of organizations has raised almost $1 million. So there's well over 100 nonprofits involved. It's a great way to find out about nonprofits and find organizations that you want to support throughout the year or even volunteer for. So check out longbeachgives.org, and I'll put the link into the chat during the first session. All right, and without further ado, now it's time to get 2 Skillshare sessions from Carin Jacobs, who is a costume designer, super awesome Time Bank member. And here it comes.
Hello, I'm Carin Jacobs, and I'm going to teach you how to hem a pair of pants. So we all have that pair of pants that's been sitting in our closet for years, and we don't wear them because they're too long. Hemming a pair of pants is actually very simple, and once you learn how to do it, you can save yourself some money. You don't have to take them to the dry cleaners every time. So here's what you're going to need to hem a basic pair of pants. Your pants, okay, a measuring tape or a ruler. Doesn't have to be a sewing measuring tape. It can be a regular ruler from your office, whatever, doesn't matter. Some scissors, a sewing needle. So here's the pack that it came in. And I already took one out. Put that in front of there so you can see it. Some pins, some straight pins. I like to use quilter's pins because they're longer. They're just easier for me to use. And some thread. All right, so today I'm going to be using this white thread so that you can actually see what I'm doing on the pants. If I was doing this for real, I would be using black thread because I don't want to see the hem thread, right? But so that you can see what I'm doing, I'm going to use a contrasting colored thread. All right, but let's say your pants are blue, you're going to try to match the closest color blue thread that you can find or that you have. All right, always go darker than the color. So if it's a medium blue, always go with like a slightly darker blue. Don't go with a lighter blue. Okay, so how do we get started? Well, the first thing you're going to do is put your pants on, and you're going to mark or have somebody help you mark where you want them hemmed. So let's say I'm standing in the pants and I have my shoes on, and I determined that it's a 1-inch hem that I want. So here's my 1-inch marker. I'm going to take that and pin it right here. Okay, so I've determined, let's see if I can turn that around so I can show you that I want these hemmed 1 inch. All right, so I'm going to leave that pin there, and I'm going to turn my pants inside out. Just the leg that you're working on. Okay. When you turn the pant inside out, you're going to see that pin there. Okay. So now I'm going to fold this up toward the inside, right where that pin is. Okay. And I'm going to pin it again perpendicular to that first pin. All right. And you're going to go all the way around the pant leg and pin it like that. So you can either just kind of pull it tight like that and adjust it so that it looks visually like an inch all the way around, or you can measure it. So get your little ruler or measuring tape back, measure 1 inch, and you're going to pin it again perpendicular. Okay, see how I did that? I go down and then back up. And that secures the fabric better than if you were doing it this way. Okay, so I'm going to keep going around, measure 1 inch, pin it, keep going, measure 1 inch, and pin it. Okay, so now you're pinned all the way around. All right, how much thread do you use? Well, rule of thumb is about 3 times the width of the pant leg. So I'm going to take the end of my thread. And by the way, I'm using all-purpose thread, Coats all-purpose thread. Let's see if I can get it to where you can see that. You usually try to match the thread to the fiber content of whatever you're sewing. So if it's cotton pants, you're going to want cotton thread. If it's polyester pants, you might want to do polyester. This one is a, I believe it's a cotton, oh, it's 100% polyester, covered polyester. Well, they covered that polyester with even more polyester, okay? It feels kind of cottony, but it actually is polyester. And that's actually better. Unless you're dyeing something, then this wouldn't dye and you would be able to see all the thread. Anyway, okay, 3 times. So you go 1, 2, 3. And then you don't want your thread to be too long because it'll get caught on itself. So there's the 3 times marker. I'm just going to give myself a little bit of wiggle room there, and I'm going to cut that off. Okay, now you need to take your sewing needle, your hand sewing needle, and thread your needle. They do have needle threaders that you can buy. That is a little tiny wire that goes through there. and then you put the thread through that and pull it back through, and it's a pretty easy way to thread your needle. My grandmother also taught me a kind of funny way to thread your needle is you get the end of the thread wet, so you just kind of lick it like that. And then it makes the thread a little bit stiffer, and then you can thread your needle a lot easier. Okay, this is your tail, and this is the length of your thread. You put the knot at the end of the length of your thread. The tail is always left open. So how do you do a knot? Well, I learned this from my grandmother as well. I've been sewing since I was 8 years old, and my grandmother was alive back then, and she and I would sit and just sew everything. So she, I don't know, she was weird. She liked licking things. She said, lick the end of your finger, okay? Wrap the thread around your finger so it makes an X. Do that again. Wrap it around your finger so it makes an X. You roll it off of your finger onto your thumb, and then pull it tight. And it makes a nice little thread, little knot. Now, if that knot seems too small to you, you can do it again and make a bigger knot. If you have a tightly woven fabric, a small knot is fine. If you have a looser weave fabric, you're probably going to want a couple of those knots just to make it bigger. So you can anchor that thread underneath. All right, here we go. We've got our thread, needle threaded. We've got our tail. That's a little kind of 4-inch piece at the end. And then we've got our length of thread, and we have our knot. Okay, so I'm going to start at a side seam just because it's an easy place to start. And you're going to come up through the hem so that you hide your knot underneath. Okay, it's underneath there. Then what you're going to do is you're going to cut off that little tail. Don't cut your knot, but you're going to cut that so that you don't have all that extra little piece of thread there. All right, this is a basic hem stitch. And by the way, you're going to want to hold your needle so that your finger is covering both sides of the thread coming in and out of your eye of your needle, right? Because if you're just holding your needle like this and you start pulling it, guess what's going to happen? All that thread's going to come right out. So if you hold it like that, then you hold your needle and both ends of your thread at the same time and it won't pull out. All right, basic hemming stitch. Now, of course, remember, if this was black thread, you wouldn't see it. Basic hemming stitch. Take a little, I'm just getting the thread out of the way, a little tick of the fabric and come up through the hem. And then pull it slowly. See, it's getting stuck on my pin over here, so you just have to kind of loosen it. And you're going to pull it slowly so that all you see is that one little stitch there. Okay? And then you take another little tick of the fabric and come up through the hem underneath, right? Oh, and look what I just did. I just pulled the thread. I was not listening to myself, and I pulled the thread right out of the needle. So if that happens, all you have to do is rethread your needle. Okay. I was so worried about untangling the thread from the pin. Okay, easy peasy. All right, let's go back and do another stitch. A little tick of the fabric. You don't want to go all the way through, and you don't want to show a whole lot of your thread on the other side of the pants. Although if it was black thread, you really wouldn't see it, right? And then you come up through the hem on a diagonal. Untangle my thread first. When I pull my needle through, I have to grab it so that I have all that thread in between my fingers, and then when I slowly pull, it's going to be snug. So you just continue doing that all the way around. A little tick of the fabric, come up through the hem diagonally. Pull slowly so the thread doesn't get caught. All right, and I'm going to continue doing this, trying to pull it around so that you can see it. I took that pin out because my thread kept getting caught on it. All right, a little tick of the fabric up through the hem diagonally. Tick of the fabric. Now when I get to this other pin I can take it out because the stitches are holding the hem in place. I don't need that pin anymore. And my original pin that I used to mark the hem, I can take that out too. Okay, so I'm making these little stitches all the way across. You don't want the stitches to be too long because your heel will get caught in them. If you're wearing a heel that's skinny, it might get caught in one of these little stitches. Little tick of the fabric up through diagonally. Little tick of the fabric up through diagonally. And you do that all the way around. For the sake of time, I'm going to stop at the side seam to show you how to end. Okay? Now, when you get all the way around and you meet where you started, you're going to do a little knot. So you're going to take a little tick of the fabric on this side and a little bit of the hem, and you're going to pull it through. Okay, so it's just going to make one little stitch. And then you're going to do that one more time, but instead of pulling it all the way through, you're going to make a loop. I put my finger through it so that you can see the loop. All right, you're going to go through that loop. And guess what? That's going to make a second loop. Sorry. Let me put my finger through it so that you can see the second loop. Made a second loop. I went through that second loop, and then I'm going to very, very slowly pull so that those two loops catch on each other and make a knot. Okay, I'm going to show you again, taking that pin out just so it doesn't get caught. All right, you're going to pull the thread through, and that's going to make a loop. Okay, I'm going to go through that loop. It's going to create a second loop. I'm going to go through that second loop, and then you're going to very slowly, so that the thread doesn't get caught on itself. If it starts to get caught on itself, you can kind of put your needle in there and help it along. You don't want to loop here. And you pull it tight, and there's your knot. Okay? And then you just cut it off. Leave yourself maybe about a quarter inch of thread at your knot. All right. And then when you're all done, assuming that I did that all the way around, pull it right side out. Now, here's the front of your pant. And if you look really close, you can see those little teeny tiny ticks of white thread. But again, if you were using black thread, you would never see those. Okay? Then I would take this and I would... Hi, it's Carin again. I'm going to teach you how to sew on a button this time. So, I have this pair of pants, and the button popped off. Well, I cut it off, but I'm sure you have a pair of pants in your closet that has a button that's popped off. Here's the button that used to be there, but for the purpose of this video, I'm going to use this button so that you can actually see it. It's bright red, and actually looks kind of cute on these pants. Maybe I'll leave it on there. Okay, so what you're going to do is determine what color of thread you want to use to sew on that button, first of all. So it's kind of fun sometimes to use a contrasting color of thread if you want it to be kind of you know, different or stylish or funky, or you can use the exact same color thread as the button. For the purpose of this, I'm going to use white just so that you can see it. If I used red, you probably wouldn't be able to see what I was doing. All right, So how much thread do I use? Well, you are going to double up your thread. Anytime you sew a closure, you're going to need to double up your thread. But you do not, I'm going to show you what that means in a second, but you also don't want so much thread that it's going to start getting tangled and caught on itself. So I would say this is probably about 14 or 15 inches to sew on a button. And then let's see at the end how much we have left over, and we'll determine if that's a good amount or if you need to increase or reduce your amount, okay? And I can actually measure this because I have a measuring tape right here in my sewing box. So let's just measure this piece of thread so we know exactly how long it is. Well, I was a little off. 26 inches. Okay, so 26 inches of thread we're going to use. All right, now you need a needle, hand sewing needle. I like to use longer needles. Some people like to use shorter needles. It's kind of personal preference, but this is about the length. Let's see if you can see that I use. All right, how do you thread your needle? Well, my grandmother, who taught me how to sew, I've been sewing since I was 8 years old, she taught me that if you lick the end of your thread, it makes the thread kind of stiffer, and that way you can put the thread through the needle a lot easier. As you can tell, I'm wearing my glasses, so if you can't see very well, put your glasses on, and there you go. This is your tail, and this is your length of thread. But for any closures, like a snap or a button, you're going to double your thread. So you're going to take your tail, your two tails, and you're going to have them meet, and then you're going to knot them together. So here's how you make a knot. Again, I learned this from my grandmother, and I don't know, she liked to lick things. She said, lick the end of your finger, take your thread, so it's going to be those double threads, crisscross it around your finger like an X, you roll it off onto your thumb, and then you pull it tight back together, and there's your knot. That's the easiest way to do a thread knot for me. There are a couple of other pretty easy ways to do a knot, and you can Google them or look on YouTube. One of them is well, you can look up the other ways, but that's the easiest one for me. You lick your finger, you do an X, you roll it off, and then you tighten it back. Okay? All right. So now you have a knot on one end and your hand sewing needle on the other end. So what you want to do is hide that knot. So we're going to come up underneath the button here. So I'm going to pull that thread through so that the knot is hidden on the underneath side. All right? Now, my thread came up through one of the buttonholes. You can either go up and down through these two holes and then skip over here and go up and down through those two holes. Let me get closer to show you. Since there's 4 holes on this button, you can do these 2 holes first and then skip over here and do those 2, or you can do an X, so you can go from here to here and here to, it really doesn't matter. I tend to think that the X is a little more secure, but it doesn't really matter. So we've come up through one of the holes. You're going to go down through the hole next to it, and you're going to pull your needle all the way through. See how I'm holding the button in place so that it doesn't move around? I'm going to come back up through my original hole. Sometimes it takes a second because you're kind of working blind. You're sticking your needle up through the bottom. And trying to find that first hole. Come on. Okay? And you're going to pull your thread all the way through. Make sure it's nice and tight. And you're going to go back down through that second hole. And you're going to go back and forth, and you're going to do that 4 times. So that was number 2. This is number 3. Pulling it tight each time. Back through the original hole and back down through the hole next to it. All right, so now I've got 4 stitches there, and if you turn it around and look at the back, you just want to make sure that it's not super ugly. You're not going to see it, but it's just a little pet peeve I have if there's all kinds of ugly loopy thread back here. So every time you do a stitch, you're going to want to pull it tight and make sure that this is looking good. All right, so then what are we going to do? We're going to go hop over to that next set of holes, and you're going to come up through that bottom hole. If I can find it. Sometimes you just have to readjust where your needle is. Okay, up through that second bottom hole and down through the top one, and you've got 1 stitch on that other side now. You're going to do that 4 times. See, I got a little loop back here. So I'm just going to go back here and I'm going to pull it tight. Oh, I think it got a little teeny tiny knot. There you go. Sometimes you just have to pull it a little bit tighter. All right. Back down. Do that a couple more times until you've done it 4 times. Now, if at this point you want to do an X, you can, but I think that looks nice, just having the 2 sides done. So now what you're going to do is you're going to knot this off on the back. And you can double knot it if you really want to make sure that this button doesn't fall off. So how do you make a knot? You take a little tiny tick of the fabric right there where all that thread is, right? And what does that create? It creates a loop. See that loop? All right. You are going to take your thread, your needle, and go through that loop. What does that do? It creates a second loop. See the second loop? You're going to go through that loop. So go through 2 loops, and you're going to very, very slowly, slow, pull it until it knots. Let's do that again. You're going to make a little tick of the fabric. That's going to create a loop. You go through that loop. Sometimes I just put my finger through the second loop just so that I don't lose it. Creates a second loop. I'm going to go through that second loop. And again, there's other ways of making knots, but this is the one my grandmother taught me a million years ago, and I use it pretty much every time I sew, and it works perfectly fine for me. Then you're going to go and snip your thread very close to your knot, but not too close, because you don't want to snip your knot away, and then that other little tail that you had from the beginning, you're going to snip that off too, so that the back of your button looks nice and trimmed. And there you go. And I actually
All right, that was awesome. Learned some great tricks there. We're going to have like 3 back-to-back rapid share skills in just a second from Micky and Erin. And these were actually prepared last year for the Long Beach Gives, so we're kind of building off of those efforts to highlight some skills that are in our network around this time. Real quick, let's check in on the leaderboard for Long Beach Gives, though, because I have a feeling it is taking off. Let's update that leaderboard. Is that it? Well, we're getting really close to $1 million, that's for sure. Very exciting as the whole city is raising funds with 154 different nonprofits individually raising funds. Yeah, so really appreciate Carin sharing those skills. lifting up Micky's comment in the chat as well. Just loving how, we're carrying on skills that our grandparents even taught us. So it's really awesome, and we kind of need those little tricks these days. We're trying to do more stuff on our own and more stuff where we can help each other out. Oh, there's the updated leaderboard. Yep, we're getting very close. So perhaps after the next Skillshare, we'll see things on above 1 million for the entire network. And the time exchange is doing well. We're still a little bit over 1,000. We appreciate your donations, and I'll share that link in the chat once again during the next session. Please share that out with your friends. Our events webpage at lbtimeexchange.org also has links to this broadcast, as well as, of course, the donate link, so you can get everything there very easily. That being said, we're going to go into this rapid mode, and first hear from Erin, and then 2 workshops from Micky.
Hey everybody, I just wanted to share how to make a 8-page mini zine with 1 piece of recycled computer paper. So you have paper with something on one side, and you can make it into a nice little zine like this. So here we go. Step 1, fold it in half. Fold this, make sure the creases are good. Next, you will fold it in half. After you fold it in half that way, you fold it in half long ways. So then next, you fold in one side to the middle fold, and then the other side into the middle fold, and make sure you get those creases nice and good. Then you will open it back up, fold it in half, take a pair of scissors, and you will cut just until this middle intersection. Okay? Then once you have that cut there, you can pick it up, take either side and pinch them in, and then just smooth it out. And then you have a zine. 8 pages. Very nice. Enjoy.
Long Beach Time Exchange.
All right, we lost the next one. I'm going to restart it real quick. It's coming up right here. All right.
Hi everyone, my name is Micky, and I'm here with the Long Beach Time Exchange for Long Beach Gives. So since Long Beach Time Exchange is all about sharing our skills with one another, I want to share a skill that I recently learned at a T-Touch workshop. So T-Touch, just to give you a quick overview, is just a healing modality that's used for both animals as well as humans, so 4-legged, 2-legged, and it's just a way to work with our bodies so that we can change behaviors and patterns and physical and emotional pain as well in just a very safe way. And so this technique that I learned is perfect for Long Beach Gives because it's heart related, and so it's called the heart hug. So I'm going to teach us how to do it today. So we're going to put both of our palms on our heart, and what you're going to do is, so taking a deep breath, you're going to move your hands not over your skin, but you want to move your skin. So you're going to place them gently on your chest, and you're going to go in a circle and a quarter all the way around your chest. So it could be a little tiny circle and a quarter, and then that's it. And then you move your hand to another spot, and then you do another circle and a quarter. And this is good, and you want to do it also with a smile on your face. So both of those things will release oxytocin and serotonin, really good for just making us feel good. So this heart hug can be used anytime you're just needing some extra love for yourself, or while you're doing it, you could think of someone in your life that maybe needs a little extra love, and you can just send it to them that way. Thank you. So the second T-Touch technique that I would like to share is called a shoulder wrap. So to do the shoulder wrap, all you need is just a typical ACE bandage. This one is 3 inches wide. You could get one that's 2 inches wide. And you want it to be the non-stick kind of ACE bandage. So what you're gonna do is, to make it a circle, a closed circle, you're gonna tie the 2 ends together. And then you're gonna put your hands through it. So here's the circle. So then I'm gonna twist it. So I'm gonna make a figure 8, and then I'm just gonna put it over my head. And we want it to fit really loose. We don't want it to be tight at all. It's just meant for your body to just feel where your shoulders are. This is really helpful for just correcting our posture. This is good for, especially when we're sitting down at a computer and we may be hunching over. Just having something really light over our shoulders kind of makes us check our space, check where we are, how we're sitting. And so it's helpful to just leave this on for maybe 10 to 15 minutes while you're doing your work, and then take it off and kind of see if you're actually more aware of your posture. And so you don't want to leave it on for more than 10 to 15 minutes just because it'll lose its effect. But you could use it throughout the day here and there just to recheck your posture. So this is called the shoulder wrap. Very simple to do, and hope you enjoy it. And so hello again. So now we're going to show you how to make a wallet out of a milk carton. So what you need is a half gallon milk carton for this, and you want to make sure that you wash it out, you cut out the bottom of it, and then you open it up. So once you have that, you want to go on maybe on the internet and Google milk carton wallet pattern, and you'll find a pattern that looks similar to this. And what you want to do is print that out, and then you take some scissors and you cut out your pattern and you place it over your milk carton once it's all open. And so you want to make sure that you match the bottle cap to the actual bottle cap of the milk carton, and then you trace it all the way around. And then once you have it all traced out, you want to cut that out. And then this is what you would use to fold into the milk carton. So most patterns will come with little instructions on how to do the folds. But basically what you need to do first is to make the flap of the carton, you want to fold it once, and then this will take a while longer. I already made these folds so they're easier to make, but you want to maybe either do it with a ruler or with your fingers, and then you really want to use your nails to bring it down, and then you want to cut out a circle for the milk carton cap for later on. And then to fold this part, you would fold this in half, and then for each side, you have to fold each side separately. So you kind of bring it in like this, you'd fold again. That way you secure those folds. And then for each of these, you want to fold them in half. So each of those folds will fold in half like that. And then you eventually do that to the other side. You're gonna have to do each of these folds separately. And then you can take your cap off, and then you put the hole through the cap, and then you can cap it. And there is your milk carton wallet.
Well, hey again, everybody. We've learned some really cool things so far. Just going to check in on the leaderboard. Again, we're doing this concurrent with Long Beach Gives, which is a day of giving throughout the city. And the numbers are pretty astounding. Yep. The donations keep rolling in across the network of 154 nonprofits, all of which are doing really important work. I do have my wallet as well, and I do use it occasionally. It comes in very handy sometimes. Sweet. So we're going to hear a workshop from Julie James, who is a really incredible local herbalist. who works with native plants and plants that grow in the region to make medicines and things that are just very nutritive. And I've certainly learned a few things from her myself and enjoy making syrups. There's always room to grow and learn in that area because there's a lot to, what you grow, what you use, how you mix it, how you implement it. So I'm sure you're going to get some really amazing knowledge in the next 25 minutes as we hear from Julie. This is a workshop she did for Facebook a little while back that she thought would be timely to share now. So here it comes in just a second.
Hello. I was just given a gift of some fresh elderberries, an amazing, astonishing, generous gift. And so I figured, since I'm going to process them anyway, I thought I would do a quick, really, I'm going to try to do quick this time, we'll see how that goes, video on how to make these into an elderberry syrup, and then all of the variations that you can do on that. So before I start, I want to say something about sourcing. So these were a gift from someone who I know. It's from Janie, one of my students and friends, and I trust her implicitly in terms of where and how she harvests wild plants, how she is a caretaker and a caregiver of the stands. So I don't know, these were from a local space. I don't know because Janie cares for a lot of different local spaces around here, but I have no problem with where these came from, and I'm really grateful. That being said, as elder is coming into flower and into berry right now, and most of the places are in flower, but apparently some are going into ripe berry, not just berry, but ripe berry. We want to be really mindful of the fact that these berries are a food source for the local animals around here. First and foremost, this is one of their food sources. So we need to leave enough for the animals in that community, and we also need to leave enough for possibly other people who are coming around. And so, you always see kind of these, well, I'll only take 10%. Well, that's rather meaningless if you know that there's going to be a horde of other people coming through this area, 10% and 10% and 10%, and pretty soon you can have what was a really abundant area can be decimated. So really, if you can source as dried elderberries, this is what I usually use almost always, and really the quality is the same. It's a delight to use fresh. I love using fresh, but when we buy from a cultivated source, we are supporting the organic farms that grow these, and then we're also not stressing our wild areas. So, there's that. So these are elderberries come in big umbels of berries, and these were just huge, gorgeous, big, beautiful berry clusters. And so the hardest part of this is separating the berries from the stems. And you want to do a relatively thorough job of that. The elderberries and the elderflowers are incredibly healing and nourishing and safe for children, for adults, for everyone. But the unripe berries and then the stems do contain compounds called cyanogenic glycosides, specifically one called sambunigrin, which is found in really high amounts in sambucus, in elder. And a lot of plants contain cyanogenic glycosides. A lot of plants we ingest normally in our diet and in our herbal medicines, cyanogenic glycosides. And really, in moderate dosages, it really isn't anything to be concerned about. So you don't have to wig out about every single little stem that you have in your berries, but you do want to clean them off. You're going to go through and kind of get big ones out of there, and you certainly wouldn't want to leave a very large stem like this. You also don't want to have unripe berries, because unripe berries do contain a little bit more of the resins that can cause some gastric irritation and nausea and vomiting if you have too many even ripe raw berries. And then also higher amounts of the glycosides that are problematic, the cyanogenic glycosides. So one of the ways to check to see if your berries are ripe is really just pulling them off of the stems. When they're ripe, they're going to come off really very, very easily, and you will find that you're able to pull them off of the stems and have very few berries kind of left over dangling. When they're unripe, they're going to cling to those stems a little bit more tightly. If you have a lot of them to de-stem and you have the time, one of the easiest ways that I found to de-stem elder is to put the whole lot in the freezer and let it freeze, and they break off from those little stems much more readily when they're frozen, and then you're not like smashing them all against, because you get really kind of goopy hands from them. But I don't mind, because it's fun. So after you have de-stemmed all of your berries, you're going to just have this big, beautiful batch of berries. So I'm not going to use all of this right now for this this recipe. I'm going to use some of it, and then I'm going to freeze some of these for later use. It's a wonderful way to extend your usage of this. And I want to point out also one thing about the berries. They have a coating of yeast on them, and this makes them really lovely as a starting point for fermentation. So elderberries are quite often used as when you're doing a really slow rise natural sourdough, where you don't want to be using a sourdough starter, you're trying to create a sourdough starter. You can take a bunch of ripe elderberries and bury them. You do this also with organic grapes. So organic grapes and organic elderberries, you can do this with. Take a pail and add just a big ripe cluster of elderberries or grapes, and then cover with your flour. Put a top on and leave it there. So we have the moisture from the berries moving into the flour. We have the yeast moving in there. There's sugars in there that are going to feed it. And if the gods are with you, you will have a natural sourdough, and you can move into bread making after a little while. The Berkeley baker woman has great information on that if you go like online or buy her books. Type in the comments if you remember Berkeley baker woman's name, because I'm blanking on it right now. So you stem those. Now if you're going to be using dried elderberries, they're already de-stemmed, they're ready for you. What they don't have is moisture, and you do want so we have moisture here, we have no moisture here, and you want kind of a happy medium there. So if I'm using the dried berries, I'm going to simmer them in water in generally a 2-to-1 ratio. So 2 cups of berries and then 4 cups of water. And I'm going to simmer them for a half an hour to an hour. The compounds that we're looking for are not delicate, and they're not going to be broken down by exposure to long heat. It's going to be extracting them more and more and more. So really the length of time is as long as you are patient, until you just kind of want to go on to the next step without it, collecting into a paste or burning. With the fresh berries, they already have their water, so I don't have to do that. Now I'm not really much for measuring here, which is different from, say, the Yarrow class where we were measuring and weighing and all of that. It's roughly a 1-to-1 ratio of the fresh berries and honey. Now the honey, you can use other sweeteners. I like honey. And when I'm using honey for this one, I'm not going to use my beautiful raw, unfiltered, elite honey. I'm not going to use my Honey Pacifica honey. This is my Azure Standard honey. I know the source and I trust the source, so I know that it is real honey. But I don't have to use my highest quality honey, because this is one of my solvents, right? I'm going to get healing qualities from the honey, because that's what you do. But primarily I'm using it as an extraction medium to pull the constituents, to help pull the constituents out of the elder, and as a preservative for the elders. So I don't need it to be really, really, really lovely quality, and I'm going to be heating it a lot. So if you have a really beautiful honey that you've been really mindful, or the manufacturer has been really mindful about keeping the temperature down, and now you're throwing it into a pot and heating it for a very long time, not such a good idea. So I'm putting a little bit less than 1 part of my honey in with the berries, and then I'm just going to heat this up. I'm going to mash them to release the juice, and then the honey and the juice will simmer together for an hour, 2 hours. I'm going to be watching it, monitoring the fluid levels, and what I want is a consistency that is going to be, I want to drive off the water because water shortens the shelf life. What I want to be left with is about 20% water total concentration. So from the water that's naturally occurring in the honey and the water that's in the berries, I want to drive off a lot of it, and I want to be left with mostly an elderberry honey, a thick syrup, a relatively thin syrup. And then from that, I am going to add a preservative. Now this is optional for you. You could stop at just making the syrup and be happy with it. But if you want to extend the life, if you want it to be shelf stable, out of refrigeration, you need to add something as a preservative. Because the sugar, the honey is a preservative, but it isn't quite enough to be shelf stable. So standard is brandy. You can certainly use that. And I like to use about 1/4 to 1/2 cup of brandy for every 2 cups of my syrup, my finished syrup. So this will be added at the very, very end. I will strain it all and measure it, and then I'll add in 1/4 to 1/2 cup of brandy for every pint, 2 cups of the syrup. You can also, though, since you are looking at adding in an alcohol to extend the shelf life, because with an alcohol now you have the sugar as a preservative and you have the alcohol as a preservative. 2 different preservative systems are going to be much more effective. And if you're going to be using an alcohol as a preservative system, you can also add in a tincture. So you could throw in some ginger root tincture or any other kind of tincture that is going to have a complementary effect with your berries. And again, you're adding it at the last stage. You don't want to burn off any of that alcohol. That's going to be part of your preservative system. Or if you want to lower the alcohol, then you could put it in early and burn off some of that alcohol. You will not burn off all of the alcohol by simmering it for a long time. There will be alcohol, even if you put it in at the very beginning and simmer for an hour, there's still going to be alcohol in there. So just be mindful of that. If you want an alcohol-free version, don't put alcohol in at all. So another way that you can extend it is you can use glycerin in the same ratios as the alcohol. Glycerin also adds another kind of level of stability and preservative nature. And then if you want to, the same rule applies if instead of just using plain glycerin, you could use a rosehip glycerite or a ginger glycerite or any other type of glycerite in there and have that additive effect of the plants. And I see that there's a comment. I know, oh, Jonathan's going to go off on a making spree, and there is no happier thing than Jonathan going on a making spree. So if you make a spagyric enhanced elderberry syrup, you had better bring me some, Jonathan. That's all I am saying to you. That's not all I'm saying to you. I say a lot of stuff to you. Anyway, so now I've got this blend, this lovely, lovely mash of fresh elder and honey, which is going to fall onto the table if I do that. So I'm going to put this on the stove, and I'm going to heat it for a long period of time. Long period of time, just being I'm going to keep an eye on it and mash it. There are many different recipes for making elderberry syrup. I'm kind of trying to show you a different mindset from my usual weigh and measure and ratios and percentages and all of that. That's one way to make medicine, and it's really, really good. And this is another way to make medicine, and it's really, really good. So you can just kind of throw things in and play with them and not measure and weigh out. If you feel that need, if you're just a Virgo and really has to have that weighing and measuring, there are many other resources on the internet, in books. There's, everywhere. Every herbalist has an elderberry syrup recipe. So you go find the method that makes your little medicine-making heart happy. There's no one way to do it. There are bad ways, there are stupid ways of doing it, but there are many different good ways of doing it. Even without the heat, I'm looking down into this pot, and the anthocyanins, the pigments, are moving out into the honey even without heating. They're moving out into that honey, and it's turning a lovely pink color right now. So you can keep it like this. You'll have a lovely elderberry syrup. You'll be happy. Everyone will be happy. However, other options. You can throw in some cinnamon, right? If you want to warm it up. Or if you find the flavor of elderberry syrup just by itself boring, as I do, there's a lot of different ways that you can play with that. So cinnamon you can throw in to kind of spice it up, warm it up. Really good also if when you get a cold or a flu, you have a lot of cold and damp maybe that get collected in your chest. You see, a lot of kind of thick and sticky and white mucus, abundant mucus, and you want to kind of clear that up. Or you just like cinnamon. Or you can also throw in some ginger root. Same thing, a little bit stronger, stimulating, warming, dispersing. You can throw in some elderflower, right? Again, fresh or dried. You can throw in some elderflower, and that is really lovely. The elderberry and the elderflower. In fact, I think I'm going to do that. I'll throw in some of the elderflower. Again, I'm dispensing with the whole measuring thing. And then I'll throw in some ginger because I like to mess with stuff, and I like more stuff rather than less. So I'm going to put in some cinnamon. You'll also notice I am letting go of the whole measuring thing. And I must admit it's a little bit of a challenge for myself to do this, but I am modeling for you, letting go of that. And then I'm also going to throw in some orange peel. So I've got elderberry, elderflower, cinnamon, orange, and ginger. It's going to make a spicy, fruity blend. Now, some people don't do well with spices or don't like spices. You don't have to go that way. You could, I'm not going to this time, but you could go more the cooling, tart way. You could throw in some hibiscus, which would be delicious, and I dig hibiscus hugely. This is Jamaica, the hibiscus flowers, beautiful. You could throw in some rose hips in there too. Again, kind of playing up on that fruity, sour, cooling trend there. You could also throw in other complementary herbs. So some astragalus root could go in there and simmer for a long time. An elderberry and astragalus, in fact, I think I'll do that too. Elderberry and astragalus syrup would be lovely. All right, so I think that's enough stuff to go in my syrup. And now it's a bit of a paste. So I'm going to throw some water in here because I have added in a lot of dried plant material. And I'm not going to put this on the stove and have you sit there and watch while it cooks, because it's going to be probably at least an hour, maybe 2 hours that I'm going to be simmering this and allowing all of that to extract, watching the water levels, adding in more moisture as needed. And then when it's done, I'm going to strain it off and I'll measure it, and then I'll add in, I may add in some of that ginger root tincture, or I'll look at my other tinctures. I have a lot of tinctures. I'll probably add in some tinctures as that additional preservative, additional therapeutic effect. First I'll taste the syrup and see how gingery it is with the amount that I did in there. Elderberry syrup. Also, the way to make a syrup from almost any other type of fresh berry or fresh fruit or fresh herb, right? This is a kind of a basic concept that you can use as a foundational sort of structure for going off and experimenting and playing with making syrups from plants. So there you have it. Honey is Lisa Ganora, who's one of I fangirl over her all the time because she's just a brilliant herbalist and a geeky chemistry person, and also a geeky plant spirit person. She's the director of the Colorado School of Clinical Herbalism. And I went to a class with her once, and she was talking about honey syrup making. She's actually, I modeled my fresh elderberry making recipe on her. And she equates the solvent activity of honey to being about equal to approximately 30, 35, 40% alcohol. So it's able to extract some of the constituents that are not completely water soluble, but not, high resinous compounds and things that are not, that don't like a lot of water. So there you go for that too. One other thing, the fresh elderberries have a high amount of a resin, and that's what causes a lot of the gastric irritation and nausea when you eat a lot of raw fresh berries. It's not really the cyanogenic glycosides, it is the resins in there, and they're broken down during the cooking process. So as I'm cooking this, there's going to be kind of a greenish kind of resin that floats up to the top during the cooking process, and I'm going to skim that off with the scum, and get rid of that. And once they're cooked and skimmed, you've gotten rid of that resin, which is why for most people, the cooked or fermented elderberry syrup is not going to be nauseating. There are some people who seem to have an intense sensitivity, and for those people, there's other plants that are available. That's all. Go make some elderberry syrup, because summer colds and flus are a bitch, and you don't want to have those. It's also just very nice to have in abundance, and it's also really tasty, so we don't have to think about elderberry as only a plant for colds and flu, right? The berry extract has been found to have a very specific antiviral effect, specifically against the human influenza virus, and blocks the ability of the virus to enter into the cell to replicate. And without the virus hijacking the genetic material inside the cell, it can't replicate and then spread through the body. So it sort of shields the specific anthocyanins in elderberry shield the cells from the virus being able to come in. So that's how elderberry works for fighting flu. But those same anthocyanins are also very good anti-inflammatory compounds. And so they're really good as antioxidants, as anti-inflammatories, to strengthen tissues in the body, to improve circulation for people who tend to have just kind of weak tissues. They're not really resilient and elastic. For people who have poor circulatory problems, bruise very easily, spider veins, varicose veins, those are really good excuses for having elderberry syrup every single day. So there you go. If you needed to rationalize having elderberry syrup all the time, there it is right there.
All right, what an awesome workshop. So much knowledge packed into that. We're always grateful to have folks like Julie James holding it down with the Long Beach knowledge and training the future herbalists of Long Beach. We're going to jump right into our next Skillshare and remind you to head over to longbeachgives.org to support the Long Beach Time Exchange and other organizations that are all fundraising collectively. The network is at over $1 million now, so it is definitely working with about 150 organizations fundraising. And I'm excited to see where it goes, since donations can go up until midnight tonight. This broadcast will go till about 4:30, so I'm excited to share the rest of these skills with you that have been collected from Long Beach Time Exchange members and friends. We've got a network of about 300 members who share skills with one another, and we're raising funds so that we have a bit more resources to put toward making those opportunities available online, because it does take a lot of work and a lot of support, and there are a lot of folks who wish to share in this format but could use support in getting up to speed with it. So we hope to have and plan to have regularly occurring free workshops for Time Exchange members, and it is free to be a Time Exchange member, where you use time credits to give and receive services and skills. All right, so I'm just pulling up the next one, and this one's from a very, very long time Time Exchange member, Allison, who's going to share a couple of techniques that she uses to relieve stress.
Okay, so this video is for the Long Beach Time Exchange. My name is Allison Slay, and I have been a member of the Time Exchange since 2011, and I've accumulated so many hours on there. I couldn't even go to the classes and stuff, but I wanted to do some stress relief techniques. So I'll just start it off. Candles are very good stress relievers. So first I'm gonna do a grounding. And then the things in my background, these are the Long Beach Gives flyer for the 24th. You can give until midnight. And then this is just one of our basic flyers for the Time Exchange. Sorry, it's backwards. And I just wanted to say there was some like troubleshooting going into this, and it's the first time I've like cleared off this desk. Like during COVID, there was a huge amount of like scattered papers. So as part of this, when I'm done with this video, I'm gonna go through all these papers that I have scattered. Sometimes it's to-dos, sometimes it's paychecks, stuff I don't need, this is not a bill, all kinds of stuff. So this is a Yankee Candle. Just have that right there. And then, so this is my first thing that I like to do for grounding. Light a candle. Second thing I like to do is get some Palo Santo, and I usually will like go to the stove. I have like a gas stove, and I turn it on. That will really light it up, and then I go around the house. Right now I have to use a lighter because I'm trying not to bug my roommates and stuff. So yeah. And there's lots of other things. I know there's a lot going around, a lot of information about Palo Santo, whether or how it should be used. So feel free to look that up. This isn't really catching on fire, so. It's the candle. Yeah, I've had this Palo Santo for a pretty long time. I know there's lots of other stuff you can use, like sweet grass. I even burn like lavender, stuff like that. But I really like the woody scent of this. You can see the smoke going. And this is just a good way. It's for me to clear the air, and then it really does help me feel very grounded. Okay, so I'm just enjoying. For me, it is about like the scent, so just taking a minute to take a deep breath in through the nose and then out through the mouth, and just really taking this in. So I thought this would be a good video and a good skills share because of the times that we're in with COVID and all that. I think personally my anxiety has been heavier than normal, and I normally have pretty high amount of anxiety, so. Alright, great. Okay, and then I'm going to share my favorite essential oil. So this is a roller type, and I've used this like so much the label has completely come off, but this is from Moon and Horn. It's a Long Beach company, And inside here is ylang. So usually what I do is I'll just put some right here, and I like to put it like on my face because I really want to smell it. I know some people go like this. It's not really my favorite. And then what I like to do, especially when I'm stressed out, is I just actually start right here, like maybe the third eye, and then I actually just roll it down the middle. So you can do this with a bunch of different essential oils. I would recommend looking it up and seeing which ones can be used. I'm not sure if this is supposed to be used on the face or not, but I do this often. I know a lot of oils you can also mix it with, like I would recommend coconut oil or hemp oil. That way you can safely put it on your skin. But I put this on, I only put this much, maybe like once a week, and I've never had any bad effects. So that's ylang. So yeah, hopefully you guys enjoy this video. Our goal today is to get some donations toward the Long Beach Time Exchange. This year they actually lost their only staff member. So right now the entire organization's volunteer run. From every single board position, the director position is volunteer. So they're really gonna need our support during this Long Beach Gives campaign. So thanks you guys so much for stopping in. If you have any questions, feel free to email me or hit me up. My email is allisonslay3@gmail.com, and it's ALLISONSLAY3@gmail.com if you guys have any further questions. Thanks so much for supporting the Time Exchange and logging in today for our Skillshare. Bye.
Say it with me, ylang. It's a lovely scent to pronounce, as Erin is saying in the comments. In just a moment, Erin's going to be joining us. She's actually been doing amazing work building our donor program for the Time Exchange, applying for grants, and helping us plan our efforts. Really critical and wonderful person who's brought a lot of great people into the mix today. We have the opportunity to check the leaderboard real quick before we get our next workshop. And then after that, we'll bring Erin on for a little chat, see how things are going, and maybe share some good memories of Time Exchange times. So let's check that leaderboard. Let's have a look. Oh, not too shabby. So during the last couple workshops, about another 20,000 came in across the network. Let's see, I believe we're at about 1,200 as an organization. We're under the Community and Civic Engagement category on longbeachgives.org. And yeah, we're doing pretty good. $1,000 is really going to help us actually, especially as we aim to launch a mobile app. We're going to use an app that exists, but it's going to take some work to get things onboarded and promote the app and try to get folks signed up. So we're hoping to use some of your support to draw folks into the network. You know, we have a good network of members, but many more folks who would love to be part of what we're doing and join for free. And you know, we have a website that allows you to create a profile and share offers and requests and contact other members securely. But again, being able to do that in a mobile app sure would make it easier in a lot of cases too. So let's go ahead and get the next video queued up, and we'll be right back in just a moment. Cool. Nice to see Marty in the chat as well. It's good to see and hear from some folks since we've all been in this quarantine situation. Looks like we're queued up with the next skill share from Carin. We're going to learn about cloth gift wrapping in a 10-minute session. And then after that, we'll chat with Erin a little bit and hear some more awesome skills.
Hi, my name's Carin, and today I'm going to share with you techniques for cloth gift wrapping. I started cloth gift wrapping a few years ago. I wanted to be more environmentally friendly and not use paper gift wrap anymore. I wanted to save storage space. Those big rolls of wrapping paper can take up a lot of room in storage closets and things like that. And then I also wanted to keep paper out of the landfill. I would go home from a holiday and see just garbage bags and garbage bags full of paper that was discarded, only to be enjoyed for one night before it goes to the landfill. So I learned how to do a couple different techniques for cloth gift wrapping. You might also see it under a Japanese name, furoshiki. For cloth gift wrapping, a strong but thin fabric works well, and we also have to consider the appearance of the fabric. So what I like to do is use silk scarves from the thrift store. When I'm at the thrift store in town, or when I travel, I visit thrift stores as well, and I pick up a bunch of silk scarves with different patterns. All the techniques I'm going to show you today use a square cloth. There are some wrapping techniques for rectangular cloth, but I usually tend to stick to square cloths. I keep a variety of scarves on hand, different sizes, different patterns. I like to give scarves that match the person's personality, or maybe they're older or younger. So I have a bunch of different scarves, but the size of the scarf also matters depending on the size of the gift. So we have scarves that are a little bit smaller. We have scarves that are a little bit bigger, and all different kinds of fun patterns. And I've even wrapped a large wedding gift in a bed sheet once. So the first technique that I'm going to show you is how to wrap a bottle. We like to give bottles of wine as gifts, so that's a common gift. We have a nice cheetah print here. Who saw Tiger King? And so I'm going to put the bottle right in the middle of the scarf, and I'm going to gather opposite corners of the scarf and tie a double knot right on top of the bottle. So I'll tie this down to the knot is just resting on the top of the bottle, and then do my double knot so that doesn't come undone. So this is going to be the top of the bottle. You can leave it like this. You can tie the tops together to make a handle for carrying your gift. If you want to be a little bit fancier, you can twirl these a little bit. Make sure that you're twirling them in the same direction. Oops. So that they don't unravel, and then tie them together at the top. So here's another double knot. So that's going to be the handle of your gift. And then with these two corners that are left hanging down, I'm going to cross them over each other in the back, and then when I bring them back around to the front, I can tie them together down in the middle of the bottle. I can bring them up top and cross them over a few more times and tie them at the top of the bottle. It's really up to you and how you want to present your gift. So I can do like this, like a little bow tie. I can do a double knot so the ends are a little bit shorter, or if you want to do a bow, I don't know if it's long enough to do that, but if your scarf is a little bit longer, you can tie it in a bow. And that's how you would take your gift. I'll use a medium-sized scarf for this wrap. This is to wrap 2 books, and I think this is my favorite one. And I believe this is the first one I ever learned. So just take the 2 books and put them in opposite corners of the scarf, and then start rolling them towards each other until they meet in the middle, and then you can lie them down on top of each other. Take the sides of the scarf and cross them over one another in between the books, and you can pull it tight, make sure everything's even, and then pull the ends up between the books and towards the spine of the books, and then you can tie a knot in the top, and that can be a bow or a little handle. For this wrap, I'm going to use one of the smaller scarves. This is a good wrap for a candle or maybe a small plant, but I'm just going to bring up all 4 corners of the scarf to the top of the jar and then twirl it around so that I can make a little knot. And you can pull the tails through if you want, but I'm just gonna, for this one, I'm just gonna leave a little loop on the top just for decoration. The next wrap I'm gonna show you is how to wrap 2 bottles. So again, we'll take one of the larger scarves, and I'll take 1 bottle right in the middle of the scarf and then lie it down towards one of the corners. And the other bottle, again, right in the middle of the scarf, and then lie it down towards the corners. I'm gonna flip one side of the scarf over the bottles and then roll the bottles until you get to the end of the scarf, and then I have this nice little space in between, and I'm just going to bring the bottles up next to each other, and then I have these 2 ends, and I can tie these ends in a knot. And much like our other wraps, we can do a double knot and leave the ends hanging down. We can tie it in a bow, and we can tie the ends together to make a handle. So you can carry your 2 bottles like this. The next wrap I'm going to show you is how to wrap a rectangular box. So I'll use one of the larger scarves. I'll put the box diagonally in the corner of the scarf, and then just roll the box until there's only a little bit of scarf left, and that can come up over the top. And then take the 2 ends and bring them together in the middle and pull it tight. This little end, sometimes I like to tie it to one of the longer ends just to secure it, and then if you have this little part sticking out, you can tuck it underneath. Okay, and you can tie another knot here to make a square knot. You can also, if you have enough length, you can make a bow. And we'll just tuck in the fabric tag right underneath so that's not sticking out. So that would be a rectangle shaped box. The last technique I'll show you, this can be used to wrap a gift, but it can also be used just to transport items. So if you're at the farmer's market and you see something that you like but you don't have a reusable shopping bag, or if you want to take a few items to the beach, I'll show you how to make a little bag to do that. So here is my beach towel and my sunscreen and my lunch, and I want to take all these things to the beach. So the first thing that you're going to do is take a corner of the scarf and tie a knot, and it doesn't matter how long this is, except just pay attention to how long it is so that you can try and match it on the other side. So I'm going to take this corner and tie a knot, and then kind of tuck it into the scarf. And I'll match that on the other side. So I'll try to make it about the same size and tie a knot. And then tuck it into the side. And then all that's left is to bring up the other 2 sides, and there is your little bag. So you can leave it long like this and tie a knot in the top to make a purse or an over-the-shoulder bag. You can tie a knot and bring this all the way down. I'll do a square knot just to keep it secure. and then tie the ends together to make a handle. Or if you did want to make this into a gift, if you were wrapping a gift of this size and shape, you can also do a bow. There's a lot of different options. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed the demonstration. If you have any questions or you just want to say hi, you can find me on the Long Beach Time Exchange.
All right. I think we're back with Erin. There's a little bit of echo, Erin, so you might want to turn your speaker down a notch.
Okay.
Cool.
Is that
Okay, I
better?
think we're actually live with Erin now. Sounds great. I'll try not to yell at you.
Okay.
Cool. Well, Erin, thanks for all your awesome work to bring folks together today, and throughout the years with the Time Exchange. Wanted to see if there's anything you want to share about your experience in the Time Exchange, or things that have stood out to you in the past year that have been really powerful.
So many things. Yeah, I've been a member of the Time Exchange since the beginning, I believe. And there's, as somebody who moved across the country away from my family that is mostly on the East Coast, I feel like it's kind of like having another family there, someone to, a bunch of someones to look to when I need help with different things. And just seeing the repair cafe and seeing all these people giving their time to use their expertise to help everyone else in the neighborhood. I just feel like there's so much talent and creativity and resourcefulness here. And yet there's also people that are suffering and that are without so many things. But it just feels like if the more we band together, the more it is possible that there'll be less of those people that are struggling, the more we can lift each other up. So I just feel like this is such a revolutionary thing that I don't understand why, like, millions of people aren't clamoring to be a part of this. And hopefully more and more will. But
Indeed. I think one of the challenges is just getting the awareness out there that this is a way to connect with folks and share your skills. I also think kind of another challenge of it is the technology, so it becomes easier and more fluid. I mean, in a time bank, you still are dealing with people, so you still have to be patient and kind of work out your schedules, whether it's virtual or not, to actually connect with folks. But again, something that's worked well for us over the years is group learning and peer-driven learning. And then the other challenge with that is like just kind of helping people over the hurdles of actually communicating their ideas and their skills and building that confidence. I think this network is a great way to build that confidence. And also for folks who are really experienced with sharing their skills, like Julie James, for example, and the presenter we just heard from, it's like great to have them out there as inspiring folks, and maybe to help them to get more opportunities to help train and prep other folks to share skills. So certainly is something that we
yeah.
can do more strongly together.
And you see like people like Julie being a great example because she's so generous and free with all that information that she has in her brain, but it also is just building up such good karma. And there are so many people that want to give to her too. So that was why she was gifted those fresh elderberries. It's this kind of give and take, this good energy exchange that happens. When you're sharing these things so freely with your neighbors.
Most definitely. Well, I think we're almost ready to jump back over for our next skill share, which is overcoming creative blocks with Nadia. I'm just in the process of
Awesome.
pulling up the video, so if there's anything else you'd like to share, maybe about Repair Cafe or the masks making, would be cool to hear about that for a second while I get the video ready.
Sure. Yeah, with the mask making, that's just another example of how the time exchange, our goals kind of fluctuate depending on what people need, what the community needs. So that was really beautiful to just see so many people come together under hashtag LBC makers and make thousands of masks to give out to people on the front line. And before you start with the video, I just also want to say that Nadia is an amazing artist. I've got to see different live paintings she's done at Eleanor, a bar on Pine Avenue behind Maid in Long Beach, or Maid in Millworks, and a lot of different other places. I've got to see examples of her art. So this is really a treat to get to learn from her.
Sweet. Well, thanks for joining us and for all your support, Erin. We're going to jump over and hear from Nadia now.
Sounds good.
Hi, my name is Nadia the Llama. I'm an artist and a writer out of Long Beach, and I'm here today to talk to you about navigating a creative block. Because I don't know about you, but I've been going through that this whole quarantine, and just getting reacquainted and familiar with some creative concepts near and dear to my heart, and hopefully some of that would also be helpful to you if you're going through something similar. Before we get into any of that, wow, 2020. I think it's important for us to acknowledge just how difficult living in a pandemic can be. We've gone through so much this year, and I think that just because we've seen everything happen and be a very emotionally heavy to take in, hopefully we can see some positive change come out of the socio-political uplifting. But with the pandemic and with, being at home more often and trying to take steps for safety and COVID preventativeness, it's still a lot for us to process. And even several months later, that doesn't mean that all of the stress is just going to be gone. I had a friend tell me once when I was going through a difficult time that sometimes it takes your mind a while to catch up to where you are at present. And I can see that being true. I think that it takes us a while to adapt to change, but that learning new routines and balancing just everything being the way that it is, things can take a little bit more time than we would really expect. And that's always been true for the creative process for me anyway. Even when things were fine, I would think, oh, this one, short story project, this is gonna take, like 1 month, and it would end up taking 3. I don't know, I think sometimes that doing things physically in the real world takes a lot more time than, perceiving it in your mind and coming up with like a plot structure, or something like that. And the theory seems very rapid, but the execution seems to take more time. And I think before we even get into some very basic tips and ideas and things, that it's important to be kind and compassionate and patient with ourselves, because things might take even more time than they normally would to take more time anyway. So that being said, I think we have an opportunity to learn how to enjoy the slow, especially if we're more business oriented with our creativity. If we have a professional element, or sell paintings or publish stories or perform music, that any kind of a block during a turbulent or emotionally heavy period can be even worrisome, even more than normal, because there's more at stake, and that can create a kind of pressure. And we have an opportunity to reclaim that creative love that we have that caused us to pursue those things to begin with. Some of that might be performative, and that can be really difficult right now. Personally, that's kind of one of my blocks with painting. This right here behind me is something that I painted as a live performance painter at Eleanor for the We Can Do It open mic earlier this year, pre-quarantine. And part of what I love painting live is the connecting with people. I love painting in front of and with people. It's inspiring to see everybody around, and I feel like there's a reciprocation or an exchange of energy, and I find it really fun. But painting at home, it's a little bit different. I sit with myself longer, and so it's not the same kind of painting. It's a bit more premeditated. There's more sketches or concepts and that kind of a thing that would go into the painting process. That's just one discipline. I go into that tangent, and I might go into a few tangents, but I'll try not to for sake of time. Just to say that we do have an opportunity to experiment and try things we didn't before. And if you have a lot of creative pressure because stakes are high, because, you know, we want to share more of our work and connect with others, this can also be an opportunity to experiment and to get back to the roots and to reclaim that free of anybody else's gaze. And I think that's very important because, you know, you can still go share your work with everybody later if you want to, but at least here in the moment, if you want to work on something, you know, and just keep it at home, like, there's no pressure, and that can be a good thing. If you are more professional with your creativity but are struggling to create and you want to maintain some kind of an online presence, it might be a good strategy or step to promote or share content related to already published or unpromoted work, so things you've already shared before. And that could be, you know, behind the scenes content or reflective content or things like that. Also to give your space to experiment on your own, you know, here and now. So that's one thing. Also related to that, if you're struggling to create because you have a lot of self-imposed expectations, especially, I'll go into more personal examples because that's kind of easiest right now. I went to college for English writing specifically and got into more creative writing and started to have a lot of expectations set on myself personally from a technical standpoint regarding how to write. Same thing with painting, because I did take a few, like, you know, drawing classes when I was in college and, you know, had some technical experience with that. And so there's more expectations of how to create something based on standards established in, you know, the existing, like, art world, or what we were taught was the art world, or, you know, the writing world, and so on and so forth. But when you have all that, it's just kind of hard to really get back to why you love it and why it means something to you. So one thing I tried recently was to dabble in making music, because I'm terrible at music. I can't make music for the life of me. I am no good at making music, but that's kind of the beauty of it, right? Nothing is gonna go wrong, so to speak. It's all just for fun. There are no stakes, and if anything, I can just have fun with it. That's the whole point. And that was the whole point with drawing and writing to begin with. So it was kind of funny. When I started to make music, it made it easier for me to get back into sketching, because some of that kind of bled into the thing that I love to do. And this is an opportunity to also try new mediums that you've been curious about anyway. If you've wanted to get into making videos or movies, or, you know, photography or weaving or ceramics, or, I mean, really, like, you know, sewing, anything really that has been, you know, interesting to you, this is a great time to go for it. Because worst case scenario, it's not something that had any kind of pressure to begin with. It's something that you're literally doing just for fun and not to, you know, particularly excel in whatever capacity or share with others. You can if you want to, and that's great too, because there's beauty in the vulnerability. And I'm kind of wondering if the way, with everything being as stressful as it is right now, if that actually kind of makes it difficult to be vulnerable, because we already feel so vulnerable. So that's another thing. That's something to look into. Getting to the source and the heart of it if you feel comfortable. Doing any kind of, you know, growth work or healing work that can help make it more comfortable to explore or to experiment. And that would actually extend, I think, to two things that are pretty simple and almost kind of annoying to hear, but I think that they do kind of make a big difference, and I'm kind of working on that myself right now as a chaotic person who finds it hard to be type A and keep everything perfectly clean all the time. The creative space that you're working in, it is kind of an extension and a reflection of who we are, how we're doing. And it takes a bit more time to do these kinds of things than before, but if hopefully, ideally, just keeping one thing clean a day could help, that could make it a little bit easier to maneuver and you know, accomplish whatever tasks you would need to, like, in a day. And I mean, it is kind of annoying to hear somebody say, like, I mean, personally, like, I hate doing dishes and I'll leave my dishes to the last minute, but if I take care of those side things, then it'll make it easier to get through house tasks later on and easier to get to my creative thing when I want to get to it. So if I just do one creative thing, one household thing to, you know, care for the external space, that could help make it easier to sit down and create when I want to later. Same thing with internal, like, you know, headspace. Taking some time to journal about what's going on, or just to journal about anything that you want to, can also help to kind of clear room to make space for experimenting creatively with things that you'd want to experiment with. So I think those are things to consider. It's because I mean, I think there's like a study out there saying that people get better sleep in a more clean room than a cluttered one. And so if it doesn't have to be like a thing where it's like you just, you know, spend the whole day and keep something clean, but, and especially if there's like, if you only have so many spoons in a day, if it's possible to do just like one thing in a day, that can help. Or even, but it doesn't have to even be every day either. Maybe some days you just don't, and that's fine, because you need to take that space to take care of yourself as you see fit. The balancing of things like sleep and exercise and health and house care can also factor into our ability to create, or the extent to which we might create. So it's like a kind of have to talk about it, don't enjoy talking about it, but could be a factor, and just to kind of take it as it comes and like one day at a time kind of a thing. I may or may not have written down notes. I'm just going to take a quick glance here and see if there's anything I forgot to talk about. Yeah, I think that's almost it. Disconnecting for controlled periods of time. I think sometimes part of it can be overstimulation, doom scrolling, and being very, very connected into what's going on in the world right now. We do want to stay in touch, but it's okay to disconnect, to unplug. Friends and family will still be there when we come back, to make plans with and interact with safely and everything. But sometimes taking periods of time to disconnect and just to be physically in the space you're in right now can be helpful, in the sense that you don't have all this extra content, you know, causing overstimulation. I read a thing somewhere about kids needing space for boredom to be creative, and I think that applies to us as adults too, that we need to have spaces of not doing much to have room for creativity to come in. And so if we also give ourselves that space to just do nothing and just to be here now, or just to go for like a walk, or sit on a porch or something, you know, and just take in the world, you know, just be here now. I think that can also give our minds opportunities to like, to wander, just to, you know, explore curious questions and, you know, fun things that we don't really give ourselves time to today. So there's that. And then I think that's really what I got for you right now. Just know that it's really tough right now, but I think we're doing the best that we can. And that's all we can really do. I just hope that whatever steps you take, that, you know, that you have fun and give yourself permission to enjoy it, because things aren't easy right now. If it also entails having some kind of affirmation, you know, to combat those kinds of thoughts, or to write about those kinds of thoughts and use, you know, coping for that, it's important now for us to give ourselves permission to create specifically for the joy of it, specifically for the fun of experimenting and discovering and, you know, trying new things and finding magic in that thing that we love to do. So if you try any of those things, let me know how it works out. Oh, I almost forgot one other thing, because sometimes sometimes it's you know, easy to just kind of experiment and have spaces for trying things we haven't tried before, or taking the slower route or the scenic route to enjoying a creative, you know, activity. In the actual facilitation of that, I would say 2 things. One, maybe doing a little bit at a time, not feeling the need to spend hours and hours, but just spending a little bit of time every other day or so, or maybe like once or twice a week even, just to get started. But to make sure to carve out that space to just disconnect from everything else and dial into those things that you know, could be fun to mess around with. Even if it ends up like, you know, that this may not, the thing that you try out that you haven't tried out before may not be you know, like amazing right away. To give it time or to try other things, you know, could also work. But in addition to just trying a little bit at a time and making sure you carve out some activity for experimenting with creativity, if you're working on a more extended project, maybe reverse engineering a timeline, or keeping a list of things that you want to experiment with, having some kind of like a bullet journal. I used to keep a bullet journal where I would just kind of just chart out like things by the week and stuff like that. That kind of thing could be fun. Or establishing like weekly goals, having some kind of, if you're more into that kind of thing, creating a timeline with steps and what you would want to accomplish like once a week, having a deadline if you want to really get something done, and be accountable to somebody else if your friends might be interested in doing that with you, or, you know, amongst yourselves, could be helpful in a way that just keeping one for yourself might not, if you want to get something done by a specific time. Of course, I think it's important to have fun first, you know, but if you're more focused on that, that can be helpful. But if anything, even just having one experimental project with like no pressure and just let's see what happens and hopefully it's fun and be as silly with it as possible, that can kind of have its own reward in a way that being more planned and unstructured may not, but that can still be important, you know, just in case you might need that too. So I hope that helps. I will be answering any questions and comments the day after this is published, but just hang in there. I know you're doing great, and I'm here if you ever want to talk about creative things. And yeah, hopefully you enjoy it. An addendum. Let's say you want to embrace the inner chaos. It might be a great idea to leave supplies related to a creative experimental pursuit of your choosing strategically in places in your house where it is easy to access those things and experiment, and embrace the distraction, because that can also work out in our favor. I would do this within reason, because while you may want to knit that scarf you've been trying to knit for 5 years, leaving it where your cats might find the yarn might not end up working out so great. This is why I don't leave the yarn by my bedside table, but we'll leave it in a place that is accessible but not cat accessible, although that can be pretty tricky because you know how cats can be. But I mean, you know, anything like that, like let's say you want to experiment with a new creative thing, but you don't want to invest, you know, too much because you're just trying things out. Maybe you can work out an exchange with a friend and see how you might go about that, seeing if you can borrow from each other and then just return within a certain time frame, you know, with established trust, of course. And then if you want to try to go about the way of also incorporating tidying as a way of processing ideas, I heard that Agatha Christie used to ruminate on her ideas while washing her dishes. And so that's part of why I'm trying to do that, just to see if that'll work out. But also, of course, because it's important to have dishes upon which to eat. So there's that. But sometimes doing, you know, just keeping yourself busy, but without having to think about a specific thing, can also help create space to, you know, work out creative ideas that you want to pursue later. And then lastly, embracing your inner archivist or collector. You know, constantly learning about new things and drawing connections, especially if you're drawing connections between history and the present, can be a great way to explore, and connecting what you're learning with conversations in the current world can be a great way to find a space where you can use your creativity to take a stand. And that's very important today too. I'd say now more than ever. But above all, and most importantly, if you're in a place where you're just trying to get back on your feet, the most important thing right now is to have fun. Don't let anybody take your joy from you. If this is where your joy is, this is the time, whatever time you decide is the time to just, have fun and play around with it. So thanks for watching. Feel free to leave anything in the comments. I'll try to get to it as soon as possible. I'm always down to talk about creative topics in general, be they brainstorming or hearing about why you're passionate about the creative things that you pursue, or any other ways to get back on one's feet and continue to experiment and try fun things. But yeah, if you want to connect, so we can also do that via Instagram, but I would also recommend to find and follow a Long Beach artist or musician or writer or filmmaker or comedian, because that's we gotta support local. So I would recommend doing that.
Exchange members. My name's Nancy Lene Wu. I am a poet, and for this Skillshare video, I will be teaching you how to write a poem. Of course, there's a million different ways to write a poem, but I believe that everyone is creative and we all have the ability to write a poem as long as you have a piece of paper, pen, and your imagination. So this is a great way to release our creativity, to process emotions, to play with language, and you know, whenever you're feeling stuck, whether you are a different sort of artist or a different sort of creative, you can write a poem in, 10, 15 minutes, and it's a great way to feel like you have done something creative because you will have done so. I started writing a poem a day at the beginning of the pandemic, and I have found it to be a really great way to just keep myself a little bit sane and to process the world around us. So today I'm going to be sharing an example poem and a method for writing a poem that you can use, you can recreate, and I hope you enjoy it, whether you have never written a poem before in your life, or whether if poetry is a little bit intimidating to you because you're not quite sure if you understand everything. I used to feel that way. Just be assured that you are a poet. Everyone has language in their vicinity and their brains around them all the time. And all we do in poetry is simply allow our brain and our subconscious to make connections and free associate, pull different sorts of language together to create, a really interesting mosaic of images. So without further ado, normally I do these as workshops, but in this video, I'm going to walk you through a step-by-step process, and you can pause the video at any time to allow yourself ample opportunity to write. So I'm just going to let you know when those moments will be, and you can take this prompt as fast or as slow as you want. Just in general, a good way of writing a poem, we think sitting down to an empty page can be kind of intimidating. So what I like to do is break it down into 3 steps. Reading a poem, or 4 really. First you read a poem, but then free writing to let your brain just dump onto the page without needing to have a plan of action. A lot of poetry is simply allowing your mind to explore. So free writing, which is just moving your pen across the page without stopping, and whatever comes to mind is what is on the page. And then step 2 is a word bank or a quick write, where you can just jot down a few quick notes as fodder for your poem. And then finally, putting it all together, allowing all of that pre-work to open up discoveries and doors for your poem. So here we go. I'm going to share my screen and read a poem here by Eduardo C. Corral, who has a wonderful book called Slow Lightning, just in case you want to check this out. So I'm going to read this poem, and what I want you to pay attention to is simply allowing the sounds and the images roll into your consciousness. So you don't need to worry about understanding anything or making sense of it. Just enjoy the musicality of this poem as you hear it. Okay, so this is called Self-Portrait with Tumbling and Lasso. I'm drum roll and voyeur. I'm watermark and fable. I'm weaving the snarls of a wolf through my hair like ribbon. At my feet, chisels and jigsaws. I'm performing an autopsy on my shadow. My rib cage, a wall. My heart, a crack in a wall, a foothold. I'm tumbling upward, a French acrobat. I'm judder and effigy. I'm pompadour and splendid. I'm spinning on a spit, split in half. An apple in my mouth. I know what Eve didn't know. A serpent is a fruit eaten to the core. I'm a massacre of the dreamers, a terracotta soldier waiting for his emperor's return. When I bow, a black fish leaps from the small of my back. I catch it. I tear it apart. I fix the scales to my lips. Every word I utter is opalescent. I'm skinned and Orphic. I'm scarlet and threshold. At my touch, a piano melts like a slab of black ice. I'm steam rising, dissipating. I'm a ghost undressing. I'm a cowboy riding bareback. My soul is whirling above my head like a lasso. My right hand a pistol. My left automatic. I'm knocking on every door. I'm coming on strong like a missionary. I'm kicking back my legs like a mule. I'm kicking up my legs like a showgirl. Okay, so what a ride that poem is. It is one of my favorites. So I'm gonna invite us to write a self-portrait poem. And the great thing about this is that there really are no rules that you have to follow for poetry. You can allow your mind to have some fun on the page, and you don't have to worry about making sense. This is not fiction. This is not essay. You don't have to have a point. You don't have to have a linear narrative. You don't have to have, you know, really anything but have fun with the words on the page, and an openness to discover what might come out. So with that attitude in mind, here we go. I want to walk us through how to write a self-portrait poem. And I've done this prompt so many times that it's so great that you can repeat it every single day and it would be different. Because if you think about, we wake up in the morning every day, we might be a little bit different today than the person we were before. We all have so many experiences and thoughts and ideas and emotions and feelings that are constantly moving through us as we encounter the world and the world encounters us. So keep in mind that everything you have to write this poem is already inside of you, and I'm just going to walk you through a few steps to get it onto the page. Okay, so this is an all levels workshop, which just means you can write poetry, everyone can write poetry. Like I just said, we all have a self, and this poem can be a little bit of a snapshot of yourself encountering the world at a particular moment. So you don't have to worry or stress. You already have everything you need to begin inside of you. Also, we need to release judgment. So we don't need to judge ourselves or our writing. We don't need to worry about what's good or bad. We're just writing here. We're just having a good time. And whatever happens on these pages today is what's meant to happen. So let that be a little bit freeing for you, because what we need in poetry is some freedom to explore. And just remember that you always have access to an infinite flow of creativity that is always around you, and you can tap into it at any point that you want. So go ahead and if you like that idea, just go ahead and say yes to yourself out loud or internally, and we'll get started. Okay, so I read the example poem, Self-Portrait with Tumbling and Lasso. So the first step here is going to be to do a free write. And free writing, again, is simply moving your pen across the page, no plan of action, doesn't need to be good. Nobody else really is going to see this. It's more like journaling. And it's just to get us warmed up, get your writing muscles moving. So yeah, you don't even have to worry about punctuation, spelling. Consider this just sort of like your scrap paper. And yeah, well, I'm gonna do, usually I give about 10 minutes for this. So If you want to pause the video here and maybe put on some background music or not, and just allow yourself, maybe set a timer for 8-10 minutes. Hey, go for 20 if you want. If it feels really great, just whatever, go for as long as you want. 10 minutes is a pretty good chunk of time that I've found. So feel free to answer whichever of these questions spark something in you on your free write, and just let yourself discover, you know, today, who are you? How do you define yourself? I know that's a big question, so let's break it down. Imagine you observe yourself going through your day. What do you see? What do you do? So if we want to think about this poem as a snapshot, you might want to think about what actions you're taking today.
Sorry about that. We had a bit of a freeze, and we are now back online and really exactly where we left off. So here's Nancy's workshop, right at the slide we left off on. Hope you all will find us from the previous edition of this stream. All right, here we go.
On the third right-hand column, image. And we're gonna do a brain dump, a quick write. This is to get a word bank on your list. So as quickly as you can, this is a quick write. So really, first thought, best thought, don't overthink it. It doesn't have to make sense. Just write down verbs that could describe you in the left-hand column. So we're under the column that says verb. Any verbs that could just seem interesting. What verbs come to mind? You know, so as a reminder, a verb is an action word, something that you can do. So run, jump, cook, scoot, love. So one way to make this very interesting is to think of unusual verbs, you know, maybe things you don't talk about all the time. Mingle, wrangle, jazz, I don't know, whatever you come up with. Feel free to rifle through the thesaurus. And this part I usually like to give very, very quick, just like a minute or two. So if you want to put just a minute or two on your timer, write down as many verbs as you can. Maybe you get 10, maybe you get a few more or less, you know, not super important how many. Just give yourself a minute or two to do that. And I'm going to move on to the next one. So after you've done that first column, now you want to give yourself another minute or two for the middle column. So now that you have your verbs filled in on the left, think about what the opposite of each verb would be and write that down in your middle opposites column. Okay, so for example, if your verb was slink, well, maybe you don't know what the exact opposite of slink is. Write down whatever you want, whatever comes to mind. Perhaps ramble. Those are maybe loose opposites. You know, a more overt example might be, you know, run and stop. Or it could be run and walk, however you interpret it. So go ahead and give yourself, you know, a minute to do this. And think about the tension between the two verbs as you're going. Okay, so you've done that. Finally, in the third column, write down any images that come to mind. So they can be related to those verbs like run and walk. Maybe, you know, your image is a ski lift. I don't know, for some reason that's what comes to mind for me. It doesn't have to make sense. That's the great fun thing about poetic associations, just whatever first pops into your mind, okay? So an image is something that you can experience with the five senses or somehow otherwise perceive, a concrete, tangible noun. So for example here, you know, mama bear, the smell of the ocean, loose leaf tea, any kind of specific details that you have is always going to make a poem more interesting. So feel free to write down however, you know, specific you think of for an image right now. But if it's not that specific, that's fine too, because you can always fill it in later. So pull inspiration from your life. Think about images that you encounter in your daily life, or that you have recently, or that you see on television, or that you see on the news. What are, images that you think about? What are images that you dream about? What are objects or animals or things that you love or are afraid of? Phrases that you might hear around you. So just fill in that final third column with whatever comes to mind for images, and just give yourself another minute or two to do that. Okay, so I'm imagining that you're pausing the video at each step, giving yourself a couple minutes. This is the final step, all right? So putting it all together to write a self-portrait poem, we're going to link our verbs and our images throughout the poem. We're just going to chain link them in any particular order that feels good to you. Poetry is a lot about following your intuitive sense of language, how things sound, how they feel inside your body, how meaning links up together. And especially because we're doing verbs and their opposites, we're really interested in the tension between these two things. So you can get some really interesting phrases when you think about opposites, when you think about how different two things are, and also what's similar about them. So thinking about your self-portrait prompt and the poem that we saw as an example, it had a lot of great momentum by the verbs that it used, which is why we're focusing on the verbs. So your first line to get into it can simply be I'm, and then choose two of your images that you have in your third column. So I'm Mama Bear and the smell of the ocean. Okay, doesn't have to be related. In fact, if they're unrelated, it's kind of more interesting, but they also can be. So the next line can be a verb, and then finish up the action with whatever you can come up with. So for example, I'm running toward a bright blue wall. And then the next one, you can have another verb, try and make it its opposite. I've stopped to think. So you can see in the example how I've underlined the images and the verbs. And you just want to do this in any particular order. Pull from your brainstorm on your word bank, pull from your columns, intersperse your images and your verbs, and go ahead and just fill it in the rest of the poem with whatever comes to mind. So you can also title your poem once you're done, self-portrait with, and you can choose a verb and an image, or two verbs or two images. Just kind of once your poem is written, you can see what you want to put as your title, self-portrait with blank and blank. And usually I would give about 20 minutes for this part. So if you want to go ahead and, since this is basically the end of the video, you can, pause it here, write your poem, put it together, and, I guess that's not more than 30 minutes or so. And you can repeat this process over and over and over again. You could theoretically do this every single day and come up with a different poem. So that's about it. That's the poem right there, self-portrait poetry. And then finally, I come up with a lot of different types of prompts, and I have other workshops that I do. Right now I'm doing a workshop called Rise and Shine. It's in the morning, and it changes about every month, but I've been doing it since April. You can always just look at my website, nancylenewu.com, to find out what I'm up to in terms of given poetry prompts. And there's my email in case you want to reach out. And I hope you have fun with this. I've written this prompt a few times already, and each time I do it, I've come up with some wild things, some surreal, some surreal poems, and some fun exploration. So again, don't overthink it. It doesn't have to make a whole lot of sense. Really, you're going for poetic sense, poetic logic, and that's it. That's how to write a poem free write and then make a word bank and then, put it all together. Basically, you can read any poem and try and create a prompt off of that, trying to emulate it. But this is, just remember, you have so much language inside you and all around you all the time that you can pay attention to the world around you and the words around you. And you can really basically write a poem anywhere, anytime, about anything. It feels really good. It's fun to do. It helps you, like I said, get something on the paper. It's a physical object, even though it's intangible. Language is intangible. It's a physical object on a piece of paper. So I think that's it. Yeah. Have fun writing poems.
Hey, Tony.
Yes, y'all, that is the voice of Gerald, longtime member, community leader, co-visionary of the Long Beach Time Exchange. We're going to get his video going here in just a second. It's going pretty well so far, wouldn't you guys say? It's been a lot of really interesting skills and really great things to be doing during the ongoing pandemic to really stay happy and healthy, which is the kind of thread that has, I think, always kind of woven together the time exchange learning opportunities. All right, here we go. We've got Gerald live. And gosh, I should have written out some questions, Gerald, because we don't have a lot of time for this segment.
Okay.
But I would just invite you, first of all, introduce yourself and share one or two things that you think have been great about the time exchange recently and over the broader span. It could be like about a certain workshop or exchange that you had with another member, or it could just be kind of a broader ideal of the network that you've seen come through. So just a couple things that have been inspiring or interesting for you personally about this network.
Yeah, I'm definitely going to reach back a few years. And it's obviously sad that we're not meeting in person for health reasons. We're keeping social distance, physical distance. But in the past, we had workshops and social events. Primarily, the Time Exchange has been a social network where you meet people and you see. Generally, people are very trustworthy. So for the most part, we've encountered great people. And I say we, I mean members of the Time Exchange, with myself, and also I can't speak for my spouse, but my spouse has participated as well.
Happy Thursday.
The most recent workshop that I attended, I'm trying to be brief, but the most recent workshop that I recall was a cooking workshop. But I think I've been to 2 or 3 of those, so those were a lot of fun. And then, did you want to talk about this event in particular? Because this has been really fascinating to watch and
Long Beach Gives itself.
Yes.
Yeah, it has been interesting. It's the second year that Long Beach Gives has occurred, and it's the Gumbiner Foundation and Long Beach Community, Long Beach Nonprofit Partnership have really led the way in pulling together the resources to do this. It's been cool because they brought a few different foundations to the table to contribute some matching funds and helped us find ways to find matching funds so that when folks give small individual donations, those donations can be matched. And also, I think in a lot of ways that more all ships can rise on a rising tide. So if we all kind of fundraise together and really draw attention to the work that's happening across Long Beach in different areas of need and opportunity, then I think we can do well in that regard to bring attention to organizations from folks who might not have known about them. I would imagine a lot of people in Long Beach who have been donating to nonprofits for a long time. In a lot of cases, I would suspect that they might traditionally give to the same nonprofit year after year after year after year, and that's so important and it's so great. But I think a lot of people appreciate the opportunity and awareness to choose another nonprofit, maybe even a smaller nonprofit, to add a little bit more giving to, continuing their legacy giving, but then really trying to invest in some newer things or organizations where in some cases, for us, $1,000 goes a very long way. Even when we were just doing physical workshops, there's cost that goes into that, or even just trying to host our website and kind of get this new app on the ground and have enough to be able to market that and draw people to a free network, right? That's based on not using cash. So I think in a lot of areas, people have found it's a little bit ironic for a network that's about not using money to request money. But the idea here is that a little bit goes a very long way, and we're able to use online and physical resources a lot better when we have, a little bit to undergird that. So far, I think we're at about 1,300, which is great and super helpful at this stage. And of course, as a city, we are probably nearing 1.5 million between all the nonprofits. Let's take a peek at that leaderboard. Oh, let's see if that's really the most up to date. Yeah, it's getting up there though. We're at 1.1. We started the day just a little under 1 million, which is also very impressive, and it's really blown up. We've got 154 organizations fundraising together. So
Wow.
yeah, that's kind of what we're looking at with Long Beach Gives. With the time exchange as well, I think this is a great way for us to start a new era and continue on with things that we know work, that people want, and that help people to be happier and more connected. So that's what we're hoping to do and continue. I appreciate you joining us, Daryl. Is there anything else you'd like to share while we still have a moment? Or maybe another memory that you'd like to bring up about something cool that happened in the network?
Yeah, I met some really cool people. Formed friendships with people who, I formed friendships with people with whom I haven't done exchanges. So that's also valuable. I mean, we haven't done necessarily a formal exchange, right? Because we've exchanged ideas, we've exchanged perhaps phone numbers or email addresses, and things like this. So there's a lot of value in making these kinds of friendships with people who enjoy contributing to their community. And as well, people are involved in other community activities. Like you mentioned that there's so many community organizations in Long Beach. So time exchange is a little bit of a glue between lots of different organizations, I would say.
Definitely. We've certainly tried to help connect those dots for folks, and we have had at any given time about 30 different organizations that are members that share their volunteer opportunities within the network. And so that definitely helps a lot to kind of consolidate some of that information and help connect people to ways to give back as well. Well, thanks again for joining us. We're going to jump over for Amy's video on patterning. Should be a really cool workshop. As we kind of come into the home stretch, we got about 2 hours of content left for y'all. So thanks, Daryl, and we'll talk to you soon.
Okay, thank you, Tony.
Good morning, everybody. Happy Thursday. My name is Amy Tanaka, and I'm a local Long Beach artist and designer, and I also am a health coach on the side as well. Today, I just wanted to share with you a skill that I have. It's something that I've done only for about maybe 2 years now, 3 years now, but I've done graphic design for a bit, and I decided to try out pattern design because I've always loved interior design, and I have a certificate in interior design, but I've also loved patterns. I used to work on a fabric store for a couple months, a couple years ago, so I wanted to learn how to make patterns. So I wanted to show you a couple of things that I've made in the past. And first, it starts with me doing my own artwork. So I like to create my own patterns by first creating artwork out of it. So these, for example, are some prints I made. And they're made by picking out pretty much anything you want, like items like plants and stuff. and then using a certain fluid to burn the print of the plants onto paper or fabric or whatever. So I did it on the paper first, and then I took it into my computer and designed a pattern out of it. I'll show you another one. Another popular one that I have right now that's selling really well is my son's footprints. So I took his footprints and I did watercolor renderings of them, and then I put it into the computer and made a design out of it. So I wanted to do gray since it's a little bit more gender neutral, and I wrote little love on there. It's probably backwards to you guys right now, but this one's selling really well and people are using it on blankets and pillows and everything. Another one I did actually was a little different idea. Was I did floral watercolor renderings and I put it onto invitations and created my own motif, and this was for my my niece's quinceañera last year. Let's see. And then I wanted to do a play mat for kids because, you know, I just had my second son last year, and so I decided to do renderings of planets and the moon. And then I don't have the playmat on me right now, but I can show you guys later. But I made cards out of it called Moon Phases and Constellations. And this is also one of the patterns I made to go along with it, which is stars. And I made the constellations, so they come as cards. And because the playmat is going to have the moon and the stars and everything, and then they can do a memory game out of it, like choosing the card which goes with which constellation on the playmat and stuff. So that's another one that I made, and the fabric that goes with it. Another one is I did some plants and leaves. I believe these were a fern plant that I had in the backyard, and then I made it into another pattern. And some fun ones I did was my husband loves VW Beetles, and so I decided to do some buses. And then I also did one with mountains and the sun, colorful one. So you really pick any kind of objects or ideas that you want and create a pattern out of them. So I just wanted to show you how I do that. I just recently did a watercolor rendering of a pineapple, and so I made it super colorful. And I'm going to turn my camera around here so you could see how I did it. And how you do this is through Illustrator or Photoshop. And if you're familiar with Illustrator or Photoshop, this is just a very easy thing you can do to make money on the side, really. And if you're not familiar with Photoshop or Illustrator, I would suggest maybe going on a website called Skillshare, and they can teach you how to use those programs, as well as actually going to the Adobe website, and I think they have videos or demos on there that you can also watch. So I'm going to turn my camera around so you can see how I created one of these patterns. I'm probably not going to go into super detail how to do it, because if you don't know the program, it's a lot more detailed. I'm just trying to keep this super simple. So here we go. So right here, as you can see, is one of my patterns for a pineapple. So the end product would actually be this. And this is a picture of the pineapple. Sorry about the glare. But before we get to that, I had to first do the photo or create the watercolor piece of the pineapple, right? But I'm going to take these off so you can see how I made this pattern, because these are is just one pineapple that I scanned into the computer. And then I'm going to show you how I got those pineapples placed everywhere to make that pineapple pattern. 1 second. All right, I'm going to leave that there. So I made the background itself a like off-white color. So first I took my pineapple and put it into Illustrator. So there's a couple steps I'm going to skip because it's a little bit more detail, like I said. So, but to make a pattern, you have to make sure that it'll be good on a repeat, because you know when you have fabric and you cut it, it has to be able to line up with itself when you go to layer it if you're cutting and sewing things. So I place the pineapple here and here. You can actually place it anywhere you want. This is called the x-axis, the horizontal, and this is called the y-axis. I mean the y and the x. Okay, so I'm going to take this pineapple right here. Oops, let me put it back. And I'm going to make it mirror onto the other side. So I'm just going to right click and go to transform and go to move. And I'm going to make my, I'm not sure if you can see this up here. I'm going to make my vertical axis 0. And my horizontal axis, I'm going to make 1400 pixels because this box I made when I opened my file was 1400 pixels. So I'm going to go ahead and press that. Oops, I'm sorry, I totally forgot to copy paste this. Okay, so first you want to copy, Control C, and then Control B, so it actually has 2 pineapples in that one spot. See? I'm going to put that back. And now I'm going to right click and go to transform and go to move. And then I'm going to make the horizontal axis 1400 and my vertical at 0. And then, okay. All right. See, it automatically moves that copied pineapple that I had to that side. Okay, I'm going to do the same thing with this pineapple now. I'm going to go to Control C and then Control B. So it's made another pineapple on top, as you can see. I'm going to put that back. And then I'm going to right click and go to transform and go to move. Now, this pineapple, I want it to go down here so it mirrors, all right? So this is the vertical axis. So the horizontal axis, we want it to be 0 because it's not going this way. It needs to go down. And then the vertical, we are going to put that at 1400. There you go. And then we're going to do another one. Let's say we put this right here. I'm not trying to make this extra perfect right now because or else we'd be here forever with me moving stuff around. So as long as the pineapple is kind of in the box but also on the outside, we're okay. I also don't want this pineapple to go any lower than the line. So we're going to do what I just showed you again, Control C, Control B, and then we're going to move it to the right side. Move. Do 1400, okay. There it is. We're going to do another one. And we're going to do move again. We want it to go to the bottom. So again, we're going to go to the 0 horizontal and 1400 pixels. All right. So everything on the outside of the box here, if it was printed, it would line up with the next piece of fabric, right? And so anything in the middle, really, I could position wherever I want now because those aren't going to be as strict, you know, with lining up with fabric. Or if you print on t-shirts or print on paper, etc. So I'm just going to kind of put these anywhere right now. Let's turn this one around just a little bit. All right, cool. So that's our pattern. So now I need to make a clipping mask because we want to make a box pattern. Just all right, so I fixed it. I moved things around a little bit. So here's the pattern I created, and now I'm going to make a box that will cover or be the same size as the 1400 pixel box, right? Let me just make this a little bit smaller. Okay, so we want to select all, and we want to go down to clipping mask and make. All right, we have our pattern, and I'm going to copy and paste it so you guys can see what it looks like lined up. just so that you could see if the pattern repeats well. And it does. All right, cool. So now you know how to make a pattern. So what do I do with these patterns? So usually I'll save the original pattern, which is this one, right? Save it to my desktop, and then I'll go to Spoonflower, for example, is a great website. Let me go to the main page. So Spoonflower is a site that I go to for uploading my patterns, and they actually print it onto fabric. So and it's all artists on here that upload their artwork onto here. And I'll show you my shop that I do. So when you go to my shop, Amy Tanaka, I have all these patterns that I've created, and actually the one I wanted to show you was the moon phases and constellation one. So I created it to be made into a mat. So for instance, it shows on bedding for now because it's a big mat, but now you can see there's all my moons and my suns and everything and the constellations. You can see it printed out on there. So really, you can create anything you want, and they help you. They help you with like dimensions and stuff, and what pixels it should be at, or what DPI, which is usually 150. Otherwise, you can see all your patterns on there, which is awesome. And people just come, they pick a pattern, and then they can decide if they want to what kind of fabric they want it printed on. And one thing I like about Spoonflower is that they use eco-friendly inks. And they have some organic materials as well that you can have it printed on. Another site that you can use for printing your prints onto, or even just your artwork in general, is called Redbubble. So these are called, like Spoonflower, these are called print on demand sites. And so what they do is they take your artwork and they just print it onto blank canvases or blank t-shirts and stuff, and it's on demand, so you don't have an inventory of stock at all. And so these are all these artists and everything on here that have created artwork. And my shop, I'm gonna wait for that to load. So on my shop, I just started Redbubble recently, but some of the things I created are on there. And there's my happy pineapple. I'll click on that. So this is a photographic print that is one of the things they have it on. Or let's see what else. They've done it like on clocks or phone cases or sweatshirts or a greeting card. There's all kinds of stuff you could do. And another shop is called Society 6. So there's a bunch of print on demand sites out there, and what's great about it is that if you're looking just to make money on the side that will just build on its own, you make the artwork once and you upload it and it will just sell, so it's really cool because this was Society 6. Okay, so what's really cool about the print on demand sites is that like I said, you make it once and then you upload it, and then it just sells on its own. So what's cool is that I'll get emails from Spoonflower, for example, that'll say someone bought your pattern, and I'll make anywhere from, off of one pattern really that's been selling right now is the baby feet one, the one that I showed you guys, the gray one. Like I'll make an extra $100, $200 a month just from that one pattern, and I only created it once, and then I just let it ride the rest of the time. So those type of print on demand sites are really cool for if you already have like a job and you just need something to bring on some extra income on the side, or let's say you're an artist or designer and you're just looking for something to just ride, and just get paid from. Those are cool online sites that you can use. So, and I highly recommend them for people that like who are unemployed right now, are having a hard time finding a job. If you're creative, or if you just like to do collages, if you like to paint, if you like to draw, do photography. Like, those are things you can upload to these sites too, and also help you make money. So I wanted to show you guys how to make patterns today, and of course there's more to it than that. It's not really hard once you get used to it. But you definitely have to know like Illustrator or Photoshop. But otherwise, if you can teach yourself that skill, then you just learn this skill. And if you guys have any questions, feel free to contact me as well. You can find me at amytanakaart@gmail.com. I'm also on Instagram at amytanakaartist or ac.tanaka. Or my website's amytanaka.com. I'm not a web builder, so it's super simple, but it has just the basic stuff on there that I've done. But yeah, thanks for being with me today and learning a little bit about pattern design. And I hope you guys run with that idea, and I hope it does something for you. And I hope you guys have a great rest of the week and get creative, make some art, connect, and have a good time. Bye.
I'm Tanya.
I'm Teah. So,
we're going to show you a few things with yarn, and the first thing that Teah will show you,
this is the ball of yarn that we're going to be working today. So,
what are you doing?
Finger crochet.
There we go.
So this is the tail. So we're gonna this one that's the ball, even though it's not two tails yet, but the one that's gonna be attached to the ball of yarn will be the string. So we're gonna wrap it, get it on your pinky like a cross right here. Then you're gonna take the one that's attached to the ball of yarn, which I already said, and you're gonna put that on there. If it's wrapped like your finger like that, you can move it up and then keep it there. Well, you can, if it undoes, you always have to have the tail under. See, the tail under here. So we're gonna be so you have the cross, you're gonna take your beak. So this is what it's called. So you're gonna take it, you're gonna take this off your finger, still having it as a loop. You're gonna grab it under the loop and grab the one that's attached to the ball of yarn. So that, and then you're gonna grab the one that's attached to the ball of yarn and pull through. So that's called a slip knot. Then we're going to tighten it like this. You're going to pull the one that's attached, but not too tight because it's hard to slip it off your finger once you start making the chain. So we're going to be doing called finger crochet. So you're going to take the one that's attached and loop that around once on your finger. You see now it's a 2 loop. So then you're going to take the one under, which is this one, and pull it through. You're going to pull this one to tighten it. Then you're going to do this for as many times you want till you start making a chain. Where's that chain? Okay, let me make the chain. So you're going to be doing this as many times as you want while you're going to keep doing that same thing. And so you're starting to make a chain. So you're going to do that a few more times, or if you want to do it longer, you can. So it works either way. So you're gonna be doing it as many times as you want, and we're gonna pause it for now. So you make a chain. You're gonna pause it for now, and then we'll be right with you to show you how we're gonna end it. Bye. So you'll need scissors. So you're gonna cut leaving a little tail. Your ball however long you want it. You can cut it till you just have both of them are tails. You have that. Then you're gonna loop it around one more time. You're gonna do that, and then you're gonna keep pulling this, keep pulling this, keep pulling this, keep pulling till it comes out. Like that. And tighten it, and there you go. There you go. You made a finger crochet. So here we have some organic heavy whipping cream. You'll need a mason jar, and we'll be making butter, handmade butter. So you're gonna pour that in. You're gonna pour that in. You'll be shaking it for 10 to 15 minutes. Sometimes longer. After 10 to 15 minutes, you're gonna check it, and if it might be whipped cream. If it's whipped cream, you'll need to shake it for another 10 to 15 minutes. And if that doesn't work, then you'll just shake it for and keep checking it from the 10 to 15 minutes, and then till it's the butter separates from the heavy whipping cream. So start shaking that. Bye. So it turned into whipped cream, so clearly we have to shake it more until you see that it turns yellow, and then it's more kind of, I don't know what. Oh, that's weird. So we're gonna be shaking it a little bit more, and then we can if you want, you could separate it so the butter doesn't have any more whipping cream. Strain it into a bowl. But now it's very creamy. It turned into whipped cream. So you're gonna keep shaking it till you see milk separate, and you'll see it will turn kind of yellowish like butter is. It's making that funny sound, Mom. Tips, it goes way quicker, so you don't even have to do that. It's already getting into butter. The tip to make it do it more, to make it go quicker instead of having to even do it for 10 to 15 minutes, you can Have the heavy whipping cream on room temperature, and it goes way faster. Thank you. Bye.
Greetings and thank you to Long Beach Time Exchange for the opportunity to talk about something that might be of value to you. I am going to discuss some very basic things I've learned about caring for my voice. I'm not always good about it, so in talking to you about it, it'll only help me. Among the many interesting things I've learned about breathing as it would help me to do a lot of speaking to a crowd, maybe a classroom, and singing, have to do with my ribs and my lungs. Now that shouldn't surprise anybody, but something that I wasn't fully aware of is that the lungs can expand 360 degrees, and I can increase that in a number of ways. In the main way that changed for me was what my body does upon inhalation. Perhaps before I learned the singer's breath, I might have taken shallow breaths, right? Almost when you're scared, it can be a breath that seems to come from the neck and the chest, right? But a singer's breath is more mindful and more deep, and it can help us produce a longer phrase. For speaking purposes, which is a similar thing, it can help us put less stress on the vocal folds. We know those as vocal cords, but we call them vocal folds and have for quite a while. So I would like to show you how, when I am mindful of my breathing, it takes my whole torso area, all right? So if you just take some kind of thoughtless breaths, your chest is going to rise and fall. Nothing particularly wrong with that. Now I'm going to step on this little step ladder so I can show you a deeper type of breathing and the rib cage. For example, when I take a breath in, I want my abdomen to kind of drop and expand like that, right? As singers, we can't be too shy about these things, all right? So we take a breath in. Why don't you try just opening your mouth and allowing the air in? Allow your belly to drop and get bigger. That's right, that's what we're doing. Okay, open your mouth and expand your belly. Now we can, so that drops the lungs. That already lowers the diaphragm, which is like an upside down bowl under your lungs. It allows the diaphragm to drop and your lungs to drop. But the lungs can expand 360 degrees. So what's another thing we can do? We can be aware of our ribs and how they can expand upon inhalation. So one thing that might be helpful, that was helpful to me, is you put your hands at the base of your ribs. You can feel that. And when you take that breath in, and just allow it in by dropping the jaw. So everything's real natural and not forced. Sometimes if we think about our breath, maybe we're gonna do something up here. We don't want that. We wanna go down into the furnace. Okay, so when we take that breath in, are our hands going to expand? Pretend that you've got an elastic around the low part of your rib cage. And also something that would, maybe ding, 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 when your belly drops out. It hits a bell, right? It's a funfair, okay? So we're gonna think of our lungs dropping and expanding. What you might do is have one hand for the ribs and one for the belly. So let's try this out a couple of times. Yeah, and really fill up with air. I'm not telling you how to exhale yet. We're just practicing taking air in and feeling how the lungs can expand. Right. So that's one thing. And something that you can do to send that message to your brain and body is lie on your back and put some heavy books, some nice textbooks, some choir books on your low abdomen. And as you inhale, watch them rise. I've noticed transformations in people who previously took a chest breath. And if this is easy for you to, maybe you're already doing it. If it's harder for you, you can add to your lesson by lying on your back and doing the books. Okay, now what about exhaling, right? That's the only way to produce a sound. We're talking about speaking and singing here. All right, so the next step I'm going to talk about, remember this is just a little bullet point overview, the Reader's Digest version of a few things I've learned. Stop our breath. We're going to take that nice breath in, but then we're going to hold back our breath by making a ch sound, okay? And we'll have it last as long as it can. How can we aid that? By keeping the ribs expanded and the belly out a little. But the first thing that will go is the belly. We don't want the ribs to just start collapsing. All right, so I'm going to do that with the ch exhale. So I'm going to take a deep breath in, and I'm going to keep things out. And now, at the end of that, you should really feel your abdominal muscles, all right? If you know any brass players, they should have abs of steel because they're constantly doing that. Think of how much resistance they have, especially trumpet, right? A lot of, well, double reeds also, that's for sure, very difficult. So, depending on what we're saying or singing, there will be less or more resistance. So we must keep in check the activity of our ribs and the low belly so that we're not giving it all away with on a particular sound, words or lyrics, right? Like blowing out some really skinny little birthday candles, you're done. You don't need too much air. But what if you have two little candles, but then that third one it's a real humdinger. You really got to blow that out. Maybe it's a trick candle, but you don't know it yet. So you just keep blowing on it. So let's do that. 3 candles and the third one is difficult to blow out. So you're going to drop your belly, expand your ribs, get as much air in there as you can, and then the 3 candles with the third one being hard to blow out. Here we go. Now, the more you do that, I'm sure the longer that would be. Just the same for me. I have not been doing these exercises. That's why I agreed to do this. I thought you could help me, help you, help me, help you, help me. All right? So now I could go into many, many lessons about our articulators and resonators. You can look that up. But I do want to get to something quite unusual that really has helped me. Now, I have permanent vocal cord damage. I won't go into too much of my background, but I did have surgery on my vocal cords I think I was 22. So I have some paralysis of one of the vocal folds. And I even have deviated septum and some other issues. So sometimes I think it's just a downright miracle that I can speak at all, let alone sing. And the best lesson I've learned beyond the breathing and understanding that I can really hold a lot of air and keep it in there using my abdominal muscles is the following very unusual exercise. It does not require your vocal folds touching or vibrating. We are not going to phonate at all. It's a soft palate exercise. So to get in touch with where your soft palate is, take the tip of your tongue and you feel behind your teeth. In the roof of your mouth, there's your hard palate. And keep going back, and when it gets gushy, right, where your uvula is, there's your soft palate. So now we are going to get into soft palate exercises, which really help me. Okay, let's get into these soft palate exercises. We have located the soft palate, right? And we want to isolate that area. So one way to isolate that area is you're going to open your jaw a lot, like feel open in, what we call the mask. And your tongue is going to be out and down, out of the way. The teacher who taught me this actually had little strips of rain jacket material for her students to hold the tongue and hold it out of the way. You could use a washcloth. You could not do this if you find that you can actually keep your tongue down and out. All right, so you cannot be shy and make a video like this. If this weren't the exercise that brought me from near artistic devastation to being able to sing, then I wouldn't share it like this. What can I say? I'm doing this for you. So you're gonna go to a mirror and you're gonna take a flashlight and you're gonna look down in your mouth. You'll see yours better than I can show you mine, okay? And because you want to see what's down there. Now, most of us are going to have the tongue really getting in the way. When I first did this, the tongue was in the way. But then I had to learn to keep it down and flat. I might just show you. I'm going to say 17, 16, 15 for whatever reason, okay? Here we go. Maybe this light is enough. I went down to 14. My teacher had me do 300 of these a day before every gig. If you are someone who has heard me sing, or if I know I'm going to teach, talk a lot, this is what I do. Did I do it before making this video? No. And if I had, we would probably have a more clear, resonant voice. I would probably use a higher voice as well. That is another device to keep yourself from hurting your vocal cords. Okay, I know that seems a little strange that I would show you in my throat, but I used to pay this woman a lot of money, okay? She was a Scientologist. I could tell you about her, but I won't right now. That is entertainment, and maybe for the live part, we could talk about that. But the important thing here is that you are going to employ your new breathing techniques, the low, deep belly inhale. And to do these, I use numbers. For some reason, I don't know. I'm a little strange. I start with 17 and I go down, and then maybe because it's got 3 syllables and it gets me going, off to a nice start. Then I go 18 as much as I can. Or maybe while I'm driving to a gig, I do 100 down. You can choose what you want. You can use the alphabet. You can recite a poem. But it is more helpful to do numbers, as anyone who exercises would attest to, so you can keep track. So how about I do that right now? 17 down. You can do them with me, or you can just watch in shock and awe. All right. And remember, I'm going to be thinking about my relaxation around here, and I'm only using the furnace down here. All right. So 17 down, whisper counts / soft palate exercises. And I'm going real high up here with my mask. Big, ugly face. People who've studied voice know you have to make ugly faces. Okay, that was 17 whisper counts. I feel a little lightheaded. I definitely feel more resonant. This seems to be the only way I can sing. It's a miracle. It's a miracle that I can speak and sing. If you talk to my ENT or saw the video, I have it private on my YouTube. Oh yeah, we could work that out as a barter. What can you offer me for a glimpse down my throat to check out my vocal folds? It is hideous. It's like it's a monster movie. And you can hear my ENT saying, I cannot believe that you can even speak with vocal cords like this. So this bizarre and very personal thing I've just shared with goodness knows how many people is why I can sing. And therefore, I'm sharing it with you because there might be other singers who get hoarse easily. I do if I don't take care of myself. Or teachers. Now, it's probably very different now during quarantine. You don't have to raise your voice anymore. Not that you should have. Anyway, those are the two main things that have really helped me.
Hey y'all, fellow quarantine folks. I'm going to show you something that'll probably come in handy as we're all here for who knows how long. How to make your own hard cider. I've been making hard cider for years and it's so easy. I used to make beer all the time. Beer's easy to mess up. Cider, you don't need much. The two ingredients, literally, apple juice. I use the unfiltered stuff because I like it, but what's actually important is that it has no preservatives. It can be pasteurized, that's fine, but preservatives don't allow it to ferment. So the two ingredients are apple juice and brewer's yeast. You can get there's so many different kinds available. I would recommend any ale yeast. They tend to come out pretty dang good. This brand comes in packets. Some of them are in little vials. Some of them are in weird little blister packs. But just juice and yeast. Boom. So as far as equipment goes, the bare minimum you're going to need is a bucket with a lid that's airtight, and then an air lock here. Just a little thing that allows air to escape from the bucket. Okay, now then you will also need today, what else do I have here that I'm going to, scissors to get the yeast packet open. But a very important step is sanitizing. So I've got this sanitizer here that's pretty standard for brewers and people who make cider. This is not hand sanitizer. Don't use hand sanitizer for this. Don't use this for sanitizing your hands. It's bad. Don't do that. Okay, well, this is super concentrated. I already have some diluted right here, but basically we're just going to dump this stuff in a bucket, but it's very important that it's a clean bucket. So step one, what was that? You wash your hands for at least 20 seconds. Don't we all know that? Who's got a timer? What else can we talk about for 20 seconds? All sorts of stuff. I'll talk about cider. So yeah, this stuff is not going to come out sweet like you get from most commercial stuff available. It's going to be pretty dry, and some of it, depending on what yeast you choose, might come out pretty tart. It's not for everyone. I really like the tart stuff, but yeah, hold on, did I get all the fingers? What else? So this process, it takes about, we're going to dump this stuff in a bucket and let it sit there for about 2 weeks, and it will ferment. It'll bubble away. You'll let it sit there at least 2 weeks. Cider is very forgiving. If you are busy and you can't get to it for 3 weeks, a little more, you'll be fine. But let's be honest, quarantine folks, are any of us busy? Except you essential people, thank you for doing all that essential stuff, for real. Not just, the medical folks, thank you. The grocery store folks, anyone who's still out there going to work while we're all trying not to be scared out of our friggin' minds. Oh my God. Wow, that's hot. That's really hot. That was exciting, right? Okay. And next, gotta wash the bug. First, you wash it with soap, as you would any other time. If you're doing brewing stuff, I find it best to use a soap that isn't scented, because on the off chance that there is some leftover residue, you're not trying to get, accidental soap scent in your cider. Quick point of info: this isn't brewing, because we're not brewing anything. Brewing means you're like boiling stuff. We're not going to do that at all. At all. Okay. Rinse this stuff off. All right, that's clean, but it's not sanitized. So the whole thing about sanitized, we're used to hearing it in this, virus times about sanitizing your hands, hand sanitizer. So it's just getting rid of microbes that you don't want. So we, in this bucket, we're gonna make the perfect environment for our own microbes, the ones we chose. So we want to make sure we're not putting anything else in there by accident, because it's the perfect place for them to multiply. Bacteria mostly. Viruses don't care about cider. Correct me if I'm wrong, internet. Okay, so I cleaned it with soap and water, but now I've got to sanitize it. So I've got this stuff already diluted, because this, you dilute this tiny little 1 ounce makes 5 gallons. So I've got some. See, star sand. It's the same stuff. All right, so I will, everything that's going to touch our cider, or even accidentally, it's got to be sanitized. Otherwise, you run the risk of some other microbe getting in there, and it could make it taste nasty. And that's not what you want. You're trying to make good stuff that you want to drink with your friends over the internet, not in person. Because if you don't live with them, you can't hang out with them. Those days are on pause. All right, so I got the sanitizer in there, and I'm making sure it touches every surface of that. And then I'm not just going to dump the rest down the drain. I am gonna sanitize the scissors I'm gonna cut the yeast open with and the yeast packet. So I'm just gonna dump it in this little dish here and make sure that the blades get covered. All right, so you don't wipe this off because now this is sanitized. If I touch it with anything that hasn't been sanitized, then I've unsanitized it. So you don't rinse this out with water because the water from the faucet might have little bacteria in there. We don't know. Okay. So, all we do now, and so that little bit of trace amount that's still in there, that's fine. That's not going to hurt you. It's like tiny, tiny amounts. And we're filling it with juice. So it'll be super diluted, whatever you consume. Don't worry about it. We got enough to worry about already. All right. So you're going to take this juice, and again, I prefer the unfiltered myself because I like the mouthfeel. It's reminds me of winters when I was a kid, and I like it. You can make it out of any apple juice you want. Just remember that it's can't have any preservatives, potassium sorbate, anything like that. Usually, if they don't have preservatives, they're pretty proud of it, and they're like, no preservatives. Pasteurized, again, is fine. All pasteurized is before they packaged it, they exposed it to really high heat for a second, and that killed any microbes. That sanitized it. And so you don't have to worry about sanitizing the juice. If it's sealed from the store, there are already regulations in place. This stuff is fine. Okay. So what you're going to do is you take a little bit of that juice, and I only pour about that much off, and I seal it up. So, and then you start shaking. So why I'm doing this is the way the fermentation works is these yeasty guys, they take sugar from here and oxygen, and they break it down into CO2 and alcohol. So by creating some headspace in the bottle and then shaking the crap out of it, we're just oxygenating the juice. Boom. Yeah. Oh my God. I'm just gonna make a little 1 gallon batch today. This is a little 2 gallon bucket I got from the brew shop. It's gotta be food safe plastic. You can't just use like the orange Home Depot bucket. That's not right. Whatever containers you use, they've gotta be food grade, food safe. Okay, so I'm just gonna do another one of these. Shake crap. If you don't have a food grade bucket with a lid, you know, you could use like those big 1 gallon glass jugs that some cider comes in. You got to pour some off because it'll burst open. It needs some headspace, but you could use that with an airlock and a stopper. All right. Ooh, so all that's in here so far is just the juice. That's fine. Now I'm taking, what am I using here? I'm using this brand Safale BE 134. I think it's a Saison yeast. It's, yeah, somewhere. Yep, Belgian Saison. Doesn't matter. Actually, the only time I made bad cider, it's so easy, guys. It's so much. We're basically done. But here, The only time I made bad cider is because I fermented it during a heat wave, and a lot of brewing yeasts don't like high temperatures, and when they're fermenting during high temperatures, they put off a lot of nasty smelling compounds, and so it just smelt crazy when I opened the fermenter. But the style of saisons, have you heard of a saison before, or farmhouse ale? That type of yeast can ferment during a heat wave. It can take a higher temperature, and they're quite nice. So that's why I have this. This is just what I had on hand. Boom. Okay. So I'm just going to take this yeast and literally, here, I'll bring it up here so you can see this. This is the dry yeast, and it's just like been powdered, but it will rehydrate in here. But don't stir it. You don't have to stir it. The yeast will hydrate and settle and get all put in there. So I've got my sanitized bucket. I'm going to seal it, but remember this bucket had a hole in it for the airlock. There's two types of airlocks you can buy. I always use this one because you can pull it apart and clean it. It's called a 3-part airlock. It's literally like $3. It's this part, and I got boop. That goes on there, and then the lid. But you got to, again, this is sanitizer here, and you just fill it with some sanitizer. There's a fill line on there. There you go. Put the lid on that, and then pop it in the hole. It's a good idea to get some masking tape and a Sharpie and label this with the date and what the heck is in there. And I usually tape the yeast packet to it so I know what kind of yeast I used. But that's it, man. I'm just going to put this in my broom closet. This is my fermentation chamber. I'm just going to put it in there for 2 weeks, at least 2 weeks. And again, it could take a little longer. And you don't touch it. You don't touch it. You can watch the little, when it starts to ferment, this will bubble, and that's cool. It feels like progress. But you come back 2 or more weeks later, and the fermentation is going to be done. It's at that point, it is alcoholic, and you could drink it then, but it won't be very carbonated. So the way you carbonate it is you just give it a little more sugar, and then you put it in a container. So in 2 weeks, you're going to need just a little more apple juice, and then some empty plastic soda bottles with lids, because they can take the pressure. You can't use, you couldn't use this container again because it's going to be full of pressure, and this would pop. So you're going to need empty bottles, and then probably like a ladle and a funnel. And again, you have to sanitize all of this, anything that touches the cider. So you'll sanitize this guy, the caps, the insides of the bottles, and you let them drain upside down. And so basically all you're going to do after that is ferment it for 2 weeks. And I'll come back in 2 weeks to show you. But you pop the lid open, and you add 1 cup of new juice for every 1 gallon of your recipe. So I put 1 gallon in there. So when I go to bottle, I'm just going to put 1 cup of juice in, and that gives it just enough sugar to make, it's not going to add much more to the alcohol, but it's going to make more CO2. And this whole time that it's been fermenting, the CO2 went away because we let it escape through the airlock. But this time you're going to put in 1 more cup of juice. You don't shake it up this time. I forget why, but there's some reaction that happens at this point if you introduce more oxygen that just makes it taste bad. Like skunky beer has often been oxidized, or it's not a great flavor, the oxidants. But so you don't shake it this time when you're bottling. You just add 1 cup, stir it gently, and then you just ladle out and fill up your plastic soda bottles. And the great thing about the plastic soda bottles is when it's carbonated enough that you'll know, because it'll like ring. It'll be very taut. And then when you're ready, you throw them in the fridge and drink them cold. You drink them over ice. You drink them for the foreseeable future. We're gonna get through this, folks. We're gonna do it. Yeah, much love.
One, two, three, four. And all at once I knew at once, I knew he needed me. Until the day I die, I won't know why, I knew he needed me. It could be fantasy, oh, or maybe it's because he needs me, he needs me, he needs me, he needs me, he needs me. He needs me, he needs me, he needs me, he needs me, he needs me. It's like a diamond dance, I'll take a chance, I will, because he needs me. No one ever asked before, because they never needed me. Maybe it's because he's so alone. Maybe it's because he never had a home. He needs me, he needs me, he needs me, he needs me, he needs me. He needs me, he needs me, he needs me, he needs me, he needs me. Da 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 And if it turns out real, then love can turn the wheel. Because he needs me, he needs me, he needs me, he needs me, he needs me. He needs me, he needs me, he needs me, he needs me, he needs me. Da Thanks for watching, everybody.
Where you going, I don't mind. I've killed my world and I've killed my time. So where do I go, what do I see? I see many people coming after me. So where are you going to, I don't mind. If I live too long, I'm afraid I'll die. So I will follow you wherever you go. If your offered hand is still open to me. Strangers on this road we are on. We are not two, we are one. So you've been where I've just come, from the land that brings losers on. So we will share this road and walk, and mind our mouths and beware our talk. Till peace we find you, what I'll do. All the things I own I will share with you. And if I feel tomorrow like I feel today, we'll take what we want and give the rest away. Strangers on this road we are on. We are not two, we are one. Holy man and holy priest, this love of life makes me weak in my knees. And when we get there, make your play, 'cause soon I feel you're gonna carry us away. In a promised lie you made us believe. For many men there is so much grief. And my mind is proud but it aches with rage. And if I live too long I'm afraid I'll die. Strangers on this road we are on. We are not two, we are one. Strangers on this road we are on. We are not two, we are one.
I feel like so excited. I don't know. It's even more exciting to me than I expected it to be. There's just been so many valuable skills that have been shared, so many cool little things too. And I love that there's such a wide range of ages and backgrounds of people that are sharing their skills too. I love how it shows how the time exchange spans the generations, it spans the city. Then there's so many more, members. Obviously, we have hundreds. It's cool to see this little of it. Like it's just like the tip of the iceberg. And I'm excited to rewatch it again and be able to pause it for Nancy's poetry workshop and do that, and to keep doing Rebecca's breathing techniques as somebody that likes to sing and speak publicly. That all these different workshops feel like they were catered for me in a lot of ways. And I guess I did help reach out to a lot of the people, but I swear it wasn't all like for my own benefit, but it really has been super beneficial. I'm excited. Mhm.
I may have lost my audio for a second there, but here's the leaderboard. As we take another look, we've seen almost $300,000 come in during this broadcast across the network for 154 organizations. And we're still doing all right. $1,200 is super helpful, and what's beautiful about that is the number of contributors that we've seen leading up to that amount as well, because it's really about that it takes a village, you know, to have a supportive community, to empower one another. That's really what we're about. So there's your last peek at the leaderboard for now. Gonna see if Erin has anything else you'd like to share at this point, or just kind of, in a way, sign off before we let Cory wrap it up with his stretches and some really good breathing to send us off into the evening.
Well, I would just say that these stretches that Cory is going to teach you, I think, are going to be helpful for anybody that's behind their computer for a good portion of the day, which is a lot of us. And it's this will be a great workshop, so please stick around for that. And and please, if you can spread the word and donate whatever you can, every little bit helps, and it will be taken a long way. So thank you everybody that's tuned in and that shared their skills, and stay connected with us. Let's keep building.
Indeed. Thank you so much. All right, here's Cory.
My name's Cory, and I'm just going to be guiding you through some basic stretches that you can do sitting at your desk or just in a chair. And we're going to work on our neck and our shoulder and our back and our wrists. And these are just some basic things. There's lots more that you can do, and I'm just going to guide you through it. We're going to try to make it nice and quick. So we'll start with a couple breaths. Been working a lot. You got to reoxygenate your blood. So take a couple deep breaths in with me. So we're going to inhale and hold. 2, 3, 4, and exhale. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Inhale. Hold. Exhale. Inhale. One more time. All right. Might make you a little dizzy, might make you yawn a little bit, but you're just getting that oxygen that your body needs. So now we're just gonna work on our neck. So we're gonna drop our head, and we're just going to roll it around 4 times. And you can go slower than this. I recommend that actually. Oh. And then we're going to go the other way. Bring it center. We're going to look each way. 2, 3, 4. And then we're going to nod. Yes, 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 yes. And then we're going to take our head to the side. 3, 4. We're going to drop our head to one side. Rest our hand on top. Let the weight of our arm pull it down. And with this arm, we're going to reach our fingertips towards the ground. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I don't want you pulling. I just want this to rest. So I don't want you to yank your neck because I don't want you to hurt yourself. So just reach with this arm, reach the fingertips, and let this rest. We're going to hold 10. 2, 1, and release. Good. And then we're just going to roll our shoulders back. 3, 4, let's do 6, 5, 6. Then we can even bring our elbows into it. And then you can even do full arms if you got the space for it, but that can be also kind of awkward depending on if you're at work or, you know, some of these things you might need to adjust for your workplace. And then we're going to roll forward. But I definitely recommend rolling back and forward, at least the shoulders. And the elbows. And then the full arms. Kind of awkward here. Okay, and then we're going to reach our arms up. Reach to the sky. Reach to the stars. You're a star. You're beautiful. And we're going to open it up. And bring it up. And open the chest. Let's do 2 more. 3 and 4. Bring the hands together. Interlace the fingers. Bring it out. Bring it up. We're going to go to one side and the other. 2, 3, and 4. And then we're going to bring our hands, keep them interlaced like that to the back of the head. We're going to turn 2, 3, really reaching the elbows back. 4. And then we're going to bring our hands behind our back, interlace the fingers. We're going to reach them down. And we're going to open the chest, pushing the shoulders back. And hold this. Five, 4, 3, 2, 1, and release. And then we're going to stretch our wrists. So we have 4 stretches for the wrists. Over, under, in, and out. So we're going to work on the underside of our wrist. Put our palm facing away, grab the fingertips, pull them back. You want to hold no more than 10 seconds for your wrists. They're gentle, little, and you don't want to overstretch them. So then we turn it over, we grab on top of the outside of our hand, and we pull it back. Okay, and then roll it out a little bit. Shake them if that feels good. And then we're going to take the hand, palm faces away, reach over, grab in between the thumb and the index finger. You're going to grab that little piece of hand right there. You're going to pull it. So again, palm faces away, you reach over and around. You grab in between the index and the thumb, and then you pull. Keeping this elbow straight. If you bend your elbow, it messes the whole thing up. Keeping your elbow straight. And again, 10 seconds. And then you're going to take your palm and you're going to face towards you. You're going to reach around, grab in between the index and the thumb on your palm this time. And then you're going to take your thumb and you're going to place it underneath, like your pinky, in between your pinky and your ring finger, but on the top of your hand. And then you're going to push away. Pulling with your fingers, pushing with your thumb. Straightening the elbow. Hold for 10 seconds. Three, 2, 1, and release. We're going to do the other side. 10 seconds. We turn it over, we grab on top of the hand. We palm faces away, we reach over, we grab in between the index and the thumb, we pull. So again, palm faces away, reach over, grab in between the index and the thumb, and you're gonna pull, keeping this elbow straight. And then palm faces you, reach over, in between the index and the thumb. Your other thumb places in between the pinky and the ring finger, but on the top of your hand. And you're going to pull with your fingers and push with your thumb. And you're going to turn and open and pull and push. 10 seconds. And again, I highly recommend when you're doing that, shake your wrists out. You can twirl them like this if you bring your hands together, your forearms together. You turn each way. So then, last thing I'm going to show you is some strengtheners for your forearms. So what we're going to do is we're going to reach our arms out, right? All the way out, both ways. And we're going to bring our fingertips to try to, like they're trying to reach towards your head, right? And you bring them all the way up. And then we're going to hold this and we're going to flick them down and up. Boom. And you're just going to do that. Just going to do that as many times as you can. You can do 10. You can do 100. whatever you're capable of doing. And then you shake it out, you roll your wrists, you can do your wrist stretches again. And you can do that to the side, you can do that to the front. And then you can also bring your hands out and reach under, 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 under. And that'll strengthen the underside of your forearm. This one will be more the top side right along here. So I hope that helps. And if you have any more questions about fitness or stretching or things like that, feel free to shoot me a message. I am happy to answer any questions that you all have, and I hope you have a great day.